Yes.
Good evening. I'll call to order this May 13th, 2025 Fairfield Planning and Zoning Commission meeting order. Start with our meeting minutes from May 6th. I have a motion on the item.
Table.
Oh, what's that? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you said that. I thought there was one previously.
I got mine.
Can I have a motion to table? Staff says they're not ready. Priscilla? Second, Commissioner Harrison. Yeah, I don't think there's anything further. Can we put this to a vote?
One.
Are we voting on the minutes?
We're tabling the minutes. They're not ready yet. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands. Yes, I think we have all the regular commissioners that pass. 222 Pansy Road subdivision request for a 90-day extension of time to record map. Anything more, Ms. Harrigan?
No, if you recall, this was the application where there's a sizable donation of land to the town. And they are working through that process in terms of town approvals, which has delayed the recording of the official subdivision map.
Thank you. Can I have a motion on the item, please, Commissioner Ford?
Move to approve. Sorry.
Seconds, Commissioner Corsillo. Comments or questions? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands. Yeah, sorry, it looked like it passes unanimously. That passed, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, next item, 2190 Post Road, Porsche. Presentation of settlement agreement by applicant's attorney. So just to tee up the commission, as you recall, we've had previous discussions with Attorney Pierce, who's here as well. We had granted Attorney Pierce afforded authority to settle basically the conservation area. We had a general idea that we approved. Gave Attorney Pierce authority to effectuate that settlement. Little wrinkle came up, not unusual in these types of things. Attorney Pierce and I felt it was prudent just to put out the submission for that. Really just one item, but that was the settlements stipulation was sent out previously. But I asked Attorney Willinger to present this item quickly, the reasons behind it. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name for the record is Charles Willinger, representing the former applicant, UAG Fairfield CP LLC, one of the two parties that have appealed your October 24 denial of the Porsche dealership facility. And you have the proposed stip. And I think the chairman only wants me to address 3E, unless you have questions on anything else. I'd be happy to.
I think 3 is the thing that kind of went outside the scope of what we're giving Attorney Pierce kind of authority. It was a little different than what we discussed. So that was the one I wanted to go over. And obviously, if anybody has any questions for Attorney Willinger, Attorney Pierce in our executive session, Attorney Willinger now, please feel free. But I think the focus is 3E.
So 3E says the plain language, but says that as soon as hopefully this board this evening approves the stipulation, on Thursday, we appear before the court to get the court's approval at what they call a 8-8N hearing. As soon as, and hopefully the court will approve the stipulation, I think it will. Once that's done, we are committed, we being UAG, proposed candidate, will apply for a partial or a separate building permit for the construction of the observation deck. We can get a building permit quickly for that structure As you know, when you apply for a building permit, if it's a building, for example, a Porsche building or almost any building, you need very detailed construction drawings with mechanical drawings and so forth. It takes typically 2 or 3 months to get that, and then building department, usually it takes them a month or so, depending on how good the plans are, to make sure they comply with the state building code. In any event, with the observation deck and the easement area, it's a rather simple building. And I think we could get the plans within a couple of weeks, submit them to the building department and get a building permit for that facility, let's say approximately a month after Thursday. Once we do that, we're committed to commence construction, which will be fairly quickly, and we'll get that constructed, so the observation deck will be up. The balance of the improvements within the easement area, including the enhanced landscaping and the material change that you approved for the walkway, and the other improvements that are in that easement area, we'll do in normal sequencing of construction, and so as not to damage the landscaping and so forth, but we'll do that quickly. My client wants to be in the ground as soon as is reasonably possible, before the winter, for sure, and they'll build that building as fast as possible. If I had to guess, I'd say the landscaping would be in the best planting season, which is probably the end of the summer. We'll have the observation deck done. And then it goes on to say that in the extremely unlikely event any state agency tries to revisit anything on the easement area, within the easement area, and I think it's a stretch because we have all the approval. But if that should happen, what we are proposing is that if you wanted to be the applicant, if they require to permit you, you have that option, or we'll diligently work with you and pursue the permit. But we don't want that to hold up the building permit or the CO once the building is up, if it should take that long. We're talking about, in my opinion, maybe 1 in 100 chance of that even being an issue. But we all know it's a high profile property. And we had to, in the course of our application, we went to the Economic Development Commission, we went to the Harbor Commission, the Conservation Commission via the director. The DOT is involved and still is involved in the improvements on the Post Road. 2 divisions of the DEP, the Remediation Division, and the CAM division, Coastal Division of the DEP. So there was a lot of agencies involved. But
Therein lies the wrinkle, is you just want to be able to separate the conservation easement from the building itself, the actual building, should there be any contesting or issues that arise with the improvements in the conservation easement.
that's really.
And that's kind of where Attorney Piers and I, much as I would have liked to push this through, I felt we needed to come back because it was something that was a little different than we discussed. So, any questions for Attorney Rollinger? Commissioner Braun?
Quick question, and by the way, thank you very much for the extra 30 or 40 feet of buffer. That's all I ever wanted. But I do have a question. I thought all the improvements would be subject to conservation sort of supervision. That's not really written here. Like the walk, I know the structure will be built according to what's on here.
Sure.
But I was hoping the walkway, the placement of that, and would be under conservation.
Tim Bishop did review these latest plans you have that's been filed.
So they'll be involved anyway, somehow.
So,
Not regulatory, but as advice.
well, no, he's already approved the planting plans. So anything else he wants to talk to us about.
Okay.
Yeah, but
That's good. And also I just had one question. Does this need is for the drainage structure? Is that part of your easement project? Because that probably needs a DEP discharge permit or something. But that's a general.
That's actually an existing drainage.
Okay.
structure.
So that doesn't need anything else then. Yeah, I have no objection to not delaying the rest of the Porsche project to do the easement stuff. So thank you for answering that.
Well, and listen, if it's I think it's as straightforward as that. I would approve of this as well. Attorney Pierce is here. If we have any questions of him kind of now, we can go into executive session. Everybody kind of feels comfortable with it. We don't necessarily need to go to executive session, so I leave that kind of up to everybody else. Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah, just quickly, and I know things don't always run quickly or smoothly with legal matters, but if we could get these materials quicker than I think it was 3:30, 2:30 this afternoon, I would appreciate it. I had a full afternoon at work, so it was just hard to digest what was new. So if we could just do that in the future, I would appreciate it.
We turned it around as quickly, I think staff turned it around as quickly as we got them, so
No, I understand. Thank you.
I mean, let me ask this, does anybody wish to go into executive session? I'm seeing no shakes of the head, no. Okay. Can, I assume, here, you want like a vote on this step, right? But yeah, okay. Can I have a motion?
I would just ask, does Attorney Pierce, does he have any issues with this, or it's straightforward?
I think it's straightforward. I think the former applicant is operating in good faith, and as long as the commission's comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it. I just wanted to come back to you because, as the chair said, this was different than what was contemplated.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you, yeah, that's helpful to put on. Okay, seeing that Commissioner,
I'm gonna make a motion.
please, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd move to approve the joint motion for approval of settlement and entry of judgment in accordance with the stipulation.
Second.
Oh, that's what the title, yeah, okay. Second, Commissioner Ford. Anything further? Or can we put this to a vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Bye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Wrap up states. Okay. Everyone, thank you. Attorney Pierce,
Thanks, guys.
thank you. Oh. Next item, 168 Kings Drive, building compliance application of John J. Moransky, trustee for Christopher Coco and Andres Pekarsky, pertaining to a 10-unit residential development pursuant to section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes. Ms. Harrigan.
I'm gonna recuse myself from this. I didn't get to hear the tapes. I
Okay.
sent you a text like.
No, you did, yeah, thank you, that's fine. Robert, would you yourself, is it just,
It's-
Seabird here?
Either, or Commissioner Delgado is remote. So if you want to go with,
Well, whoever's up, I don't know. Why
I
don't you
think
give,
it's actually probably Commissioner Siebert, because I think Commissioner Delgado they both sat for somebody the last time, but I think that probably Commissioner Delgado filled in before that as well. So I think it's
okay, Commissioner
Commissioner
Siebert.
Siebert's turn.
Fair. And I see, I did review the last April 29th meeting online after the fact, 'cause I think I missed, that was the one I missed when I was away. So I am up to speed on that.
So for 168 Kings Drive, the 830G application, the subject site is a vacant site of approximately 31,663 square feet, located on the north side of Kings Drive in the single-family residential A zone. There was previously a single-family dwelling on site. There are 3 single-family properties directly adjacent to the property to the east and west, and Interstate I-95 is located to the north. There are no inland wetlands or tidal resources located on site or within required review areas of the parcel. The proposed 10-unit multifamily development submitted per the 830G statute is comprised of 3 separate residential structures of 3 stories with 2 buildings containing 3 units and 1 building containing 4 units. All units are townhouse style with the first level an enclosed 2-car garage, parking area and building entry. The second level is living areas and the third level contains 3 bedrooms. 6 additional on-site surface parking spaces are proposed. The proposed access driveway on Kings Drive has been shifted to the easterly portion of the property. In order to construct the project, the site will be excavated in the center of the parcel to accommodate the level central driveway area. As an 830G project, 30% of the proposed 10 units or 3 units will be deed restricted affordable for a period of 40 years. 2 units at 60% area median income and 1 unit at 80% area median income. The applicant's experts have indicated that WPCA approval has been granted for this project to connect into the town's sewer system and public water supply is available at the site. The stormwater system has been designed to accommodate the 1-year storm event and is satisfactory to the engineering department. The applicant's traffic consultant's report recognizes the cut-through traffic experienced on this roadway, particularly during the afternoon peak, but indicates that trip generation for the proposed 10-unit building minimally impacts that existing condition. Driveway sight lines exceed the minimum required for the project, with some right-of-way regrading per town engineering department comments. As noted by adjacent neighbors, this area is under review by the Fairfield Local Traffic Authority to determine if mitigation measures can be implemented to reduce cut-through traffic on this street. Due to volume, speed was not determined to be an issue by the applicant's traffic consultant or the town. The Economic Development Director is satisfied with the final affordable housing plan with the revised 2 units at 60% AMI and 1 unit at 80% AMI. Neighbor testimony expressed concerns about safety due to existing cut-through traffic conditions, including high speeds and volume on Kings Drive, lack of sidewalks for pedestrian safety, the scale of the proposed buildings, fire department access, as well as concern for their adjacent buildings due to potential ledge removal during the excavation portion of the project. Alternatively, the nearby Ukrainian Club expressed similar concerns, but also expressed concerns about limiting access to Kings Drive. Attorney Green, representing the Sasquatch Association for Southport, indicated that they continue to work with the applicant to reduce the unit count for the project, but their overall objections are limited. The commission is familiar with the standards for review of a denial of an affordable housing application, and those standards were discussed during the hearing. The burden shall be on the commission to prove that the decision is based on sufficient evidence in the record. The decision is necessary to protect a public interest in health, safety, or other matters within the commission's jurisdiction. Such interests clearly outweigh the need for affordable housing, and such public interests cannot be protected by reasonable changes to the proposed development. Court cases have indicated that the record must establish more than a mere possibility of harm to a substantial public interest. The record must contain evidence as to a quantifiable probability that a specific harm will result if the application is granted. Mere concerns alone do not amount to sufficient evidence to support the denial of an affordable housing application. And I just wanted to point out that I did, before the close of public hearing, I did include a memo, and you might have seen it in the record. There was, our engineering department had commented both on 441 and 168 Post Road, just to indicate that the site distance meets the ASHTO criteria, and they didn't believe that significant traffic issues would result per the application. Yeah, it was kind of, I put them both in the separate applications, but you might have missed it because it was kind of doubled up.
Okay. No, that's. Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Siebert, you're sitting for Commissioner Braun. Can I have a motion on the item? Commissioner Corsillo?
So for,
Commissioner Simons.
Ms. Hargan went through the conditions, the requirements, so I won't repeat them, but I will say, look, the neighbors raised legitimate concerns about existing traffic conditions. I watched the videos that they provided. There clearly is an existing traffic condition. I think there's a need for the town to address that through continued traffic and pedestrian improvements. But as we've discussed in previous applications, existing conditions are not grounds for denying an 830G application. The evidence in the record while making clear there is an existing traffic safety condition, does not show or prove that there will be a new added safety condition as a result of the project, which is the threshold that this commission has to find to deny an 830G application. And further, our town experts have indicated that this satisfies their requirements as far as drainage, sightlines, and traffic conditions. So for those reasons, I think this, to me, it clearly meets the requirements needed to for this commission to find that this is to approve this project. I don't see any grounds that we have to deny the application. I would say that the applicant did revise its design based on the feedback of the Sasquatch Association, which I appreciate that they did that. Again, this is an area that clearly needs to be addressed from a traffic safety perspective, like so many areas of town. But this application, I think, needs to go through.
Thank you. Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, I concur with Commissioner Corsillo's reasoning. I think based on the evidence, I mean, the neighbors expressed a genuine concern, but the traffic problem is largely pre-existing, and there just is not evidence in the record which would be sufficient to raise or to support a quantifiable probability that a specific harm will result. And based upon that, and based on the evidence presented, and recognizing, of course, as we all do, the need for affordable housing, I think we're, basically bound by the law to approve this project.
Thank you. Commissioner Randolph?
I just want to be clear. I don't like this project. It's denser than what we would prefer on Kings Drive. I've heard the neighbors' concerns about traffic, pedestrian safety, building scale, and neighborhood fit, and I share these concerns. But as commissioners, we were sworn to uphold the law, and 830G is clear. 830G was enacted 35 years ago to address a housing shortage, and it requires towns like ours that have less than 10% affordable housing to approve qualifying projects, unless there's a proven public health or safety risk. And that risk must be supported by expert evidence, not opinions or speculation. Most of us don't like this law. I don't think anybody likes this law, but it's the law. And this proposal meets 830G's criteria for approval. It has 30% affordable units that are meant for working families, teachers, healthcare workers, and others who are priced out of Fairfield. The site's not environmentally sensitive, so that's not a basis for rejecting. There are no wetlands or flood hazards. There was previously a single-family home there. Sewer access has been approved, and all utilities are available. The stormwater system was reviewed and found satisfactory by the town engineer. And final approval will need to be signed off by the engineering department. The traffic study showed that the cut-through volume on Kings Driveway was horrendous. It's really bad, but a 10-unit development is not going to affect that. And the site safety standards. And the local traffic authority, which I'm also on, we're reviewing mitigating options. And you have my word that we will focus on this because it is a huge problem. The traffic studies indicated that clearly, but it doesn't rise to the level of a danger. And we can't deny this if there's only general safety issues. We need affordable housing and we haven't provided. Some people say we should deny these projects and take our chances in court. Other towns do that and have not been successful, and neither have we. Denial without grounds is not reasonable. The courts have overturned these decisions, and each appeal costs a significant amount of money, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. The deeper truth is that our town made housing artificially scarce through exclusionary single-family zoning, and growth still happens, just badly and in the wrong places and without a plan. And now here we are. The POCD, we've been working on that for 7 years. That's a long time. Usually it takes 18 months. If we want to regain control and avoid projects like this, we need to finish our POCD and update our zoning. Because delay has a cost and it's impacting your neighborhood adversely. I don't like approving this project, but ignoring the law would waste public money and weaken our credibility as a commission. We deserve better. We need to follow the law, approve the application, and get our act together and get the POCD done and get some zoning in place to avoid these types of projects in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
My hand is up.
Go ahead. Harrison,
Yes.
go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I will be approving this project. I just want to remind the public, while I heard your concerns, I absolutely did. Under 830G, as explained, the burden shifts from the applicant justifying the development to the commission justifying a denial. We need to show evidence that there is harm, public safety issues, and I don't think that there's enough on the record to justify a denial. 830G is a state law. We have to adhere to it. Absolutely. We don't make the law. Our representatives in Hartford can change it. They can reform it. And I urge everyone to contact Representative Leeper, Representative McCarthy Vahey, Representative Kit, and Senator Wang if they want to change this law, because it really isn't working very successfully. Even if we will and probably be expanding our zoning in the coming months with the POCD, but we're never going to be exempt from 830G, even if we do create a lot of density. 830 doesn't measure a municipality's success in zoning to promote housing affordability. It doesn't even measure housing affordability itself. It just merely reflects what subsidies, largely federal and state, that the towns get, how they're distributed. So it's really just a bad way to truly measure affordability. And, some people like to criticize Fairfield. I will never criticize our community because I believe that we have worked very hard and very earnestly to create affordable housing. And if anyone tells you differently, I don't think they've lived here long enough to see the results that we have done. Fairfield has 1,000 units approved and yet not built. So the development is happening all around town. It's happening all around Fairfield County. So I will be approving this project reluctantly. I don't like to disrupt neighborhoods. Fairfield is composed of beautiful neighborhoods. And I appreciate what the neighbors are saying, but there's just not enough evidence to deny it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ford.
I think maybe I'm the only one. I would vote to deny the application, not because of design or anything to do with that, but I think there's a current existing dangerous situation on Kings Road. I've driven it, I've been in it, I've been in that traffic. And the traffic study is clear, eastbound on Mondays, for that peak hour, PM, 432 trips on Monday, 464 on Tuesday, 350 on Wednesday, 471 on Thursday, 474 on Friday. That's up from 20 going westbound in the same hour, and going eastbound in the AM. We're in the 30s, so it's a significant increase as we sit here. And so I'm reminded of the legal principle that we're not supposed to expand a nonconformity in land use. So if you have a nonconforming structure that's improper to expand on the nonconformity, generally we don't permit that. I see this as the same way. We have a dangerous situation. It hasn't been addressed. If they said, the town's coming in with speed bumps, or they're turning the road going to the post road one way, or some other solution, I probably would support the application. But I think as we sit here, we have a dangerous situation, and adding this development is going to just add to it. Even if it just puts a drop in the bucket and creates a tiny little ripple, we're still expanding on what I think a dangerous situation. And for that reason, I would vote to deny the application.
Thank you. I'll be voting in favor of it. I think mostly for what was previously said. Commissioner Ford, I think you're you're correct in saying that there's a problem there, dangerous or otherwise, but I just don't see how, in my view, the 10 units, the adding in the 10 units and the traffic that would come from them would raise it to a level, for substantial harm to the area. I do see, to use your, the kind of what you said in the regular analogy, the drop in the bucket, I just don't see that the ripple or the overflowing happening here. And the sense I get potentially is that, reforms could be coming down the pike. I don't base my decision on the fact that it may or may not, but I just, I think everybody sees what you've noted. I just come out on the side that I believe, with the evidence in the record, supports, an approval. Anything further, or can we put this to a vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed?
Only one.
Yeah, Commissioner Ford opposes.
Rare.
So passes, motion passes 6-1. Moving on to a public hearing, 176 Linwood Avenue, special exception application of 185 Stag Associates into an expansion in an auto sales and service facility in an adjacent existing building. Design Industrial District.
Oh, under old business, we had spoken, last time we reviewed the P O C D was back in April, and then we had another meeting middle of April, and we said we received written comments. by May
Well,
12th.
that's not, I mean, old business is kind of the past things. If we want to have a quick discussion after public hearing,
Okay.
so be it.
Thank you.
Let's move on to that. Thank you, though. Because that needs to be brought up, if not tonight, very shortly. Sorry, good evening.
Good evening. Excuse me. My name is Rick Costantini. I'm an attorney at FLB Law located in Westport, Connecticut. I'm here on behalf of Honda of Westport. Also with me is Brian Baker, our engineer. We also have Magda Jankowska, our senior architect, and Evan Perkins, who's the owner of Honda of Westport here as well. Honda of Westport currently operates an automobile service center at 186 Linwood Avenue. Its current property contains a 2-story, nearly 30,000 square foot building. We're here before you tonight seeking a special exception to allow Honda of Westport to connect its current building to the adjacent building located at 176 Linwood Avenue. Remember, this is the old soccer. The subject property, 176 Linwood Avenue, contains a single-story, 9,200 square foot building directly abutting my client's current space. My client's looking to expand its service center operations by utilizing both buildings. My team will get into a little bit more detail regarding the specifics, but as an overview, the plan is to remove the wall between the two buildings so that they internally connect, which would increase the service center space to 38,700 square feet. Both the current service center at 186 and the proposed building at 176 are located within the designed industrial district zone. The proposed use of a service center is a permitted use, obviously subject to the special exception approval. We're not proposing to make any site changes to the subject property at 176 Linwood, aside from the installation of a new oil grit separator at the front of the property and reworking of some asphalt in the rear of the subject property for a new snow melt system, roughly 10 by 10 space near the car wash door. With regards to interior work, we're proposing modifications to existing doors and windows, replacement and overhead doors, electric distribution, modification of the plumbing system, a new heating and cooling system, and structural work to install new roof support columns. Per your regulations, the total required parking for the proposed expanded service center is 10 spaces, and the entire site, both 176 and 186, contains 76 parking spaces, which is much more than is needed. The application conforms to all the conditions of approval outlined in section 27.4 of your regulations. My statement of use that I submitted outlines that. I'm not going to read through them here. I know you have a long agenda tonight. And I'll turn it over to our engineer, Brian Baker, now to just discuss some of the specifics regarding the proposal.
Thank you. For the record, Brian Baker with Civil One, licensed engineer in the state of Connecticut. So we were hired to do a survey of the property and then prepare the site plan, which from a civil engineering perspective on this site, it doesn't get much easier from my job because we're not changing anything outside, save for, as Attorney Rick mentioned, the area shaded in sort of orange there, that's what was formerly Olay Soccer is gonna be converted to additional service, service area for the 100 Westport. The existing white, large areas where they already are currently operating. All the pavement on the outside is staying the same. There is, you see in green, there's a little rectangle to the south of the proposed expansion. That's the oil grit separator for the floor drains in the new area of the facility. We are also actually putting in a generator outside. It's basically right near that second island. There's a proposed generator with bollards to service the site. But no new pavement. We're not removing any existing pavement. And the only other changes there are, see sort of the small orange rectangles along the existing portion of the building that's going to be converted. Those are existing wall pack lights that we're going to replace with full cutoff, dark sky compliant wall packs. Right now, they sort of shine out towards the neighbor's property. So going to replace all those units, and the detail's been provided on the plans for that. So from site plan perspective, that's the only thing that's really changing is oil grit separator, generator, and replacement of existing lights. And then we do have Magda from Claris, our architect here. We can go down to the sort of the building layout. She could give you a quick run through of, you know, what we're doing inside the building.
Thank you.
For the record, Magda Jankowska from Claris. So on the screen, you see the 9,200 square feet, and kind of right in the middle of the left-hand side is where you would, where we are making an opening to connect the two buildings. So it's just a 12-foot wide service drive. So the intent is that all the cars that are passing through the existing center will go to this building, and in the north right-hand corner, we are proposing a car wash. That's an extra service that the dealership is providing. That car wash has the car wash and a dryer. So as you are exiting the building, your cars are dry, they may have a little bit of drip from the bumper, but that's about it. And then the service employees would take the cars and either go around the driveway and park them in front or in the back area and give the cars to the customers. We are proposing 8 additional lifts, which will be on the left-hand side of the building, and a new bathroom to comply with the plumbing codes. And that's really all that is to that addition. We are proposing new floor drains just to better workability of the service provided, sorry.
The car wash is just for, just for your customers, not for
Correct.
charging. That's included, but it's part of the service.
So if you have any questions from.
Yeah. Michelle,
If I understand it correctly, the cars will enter through the new cut through. That'll be the only entry area
To this portion of the building.
portion.
That's the main traffic circulation. There is an overhead door right in front of the drains in the middle, kind of on the back. And that is intended to be an exit, and, in case the front door on the other building fails, they can
That'll
also
be
use that one, but it's
exit.
intended to be an exit, yes.
And also, is there an exit from the car wash area or?
Correct. So it's a drive-through car area, so we have a door right next to it.
Good, thank you.
Commissioner Braun?
Is the only added services for the new facility the car wash? Or
So the current facility actually has a car wash. It's just not a drive-through car wash, so they come in their cars, back out, and leave the building.
so that's the only thing you're adding to your business model is the car wash in the
You're
new
not,
section?
it's not even being added, it's moved.
It's a service currently offered, but it's on the existing property at 186. They're adding this section here so they can
And
go
are there,
drive through.
okay, are there other services being added to the new section though? Or-
Yeah,
There's 8 more lifts.
More or less
Could
Or
not.
just to
More
do-
capacity for.
So you're not expecting a lot of expanded traffic or anything like that?
No.
Then is there any possibility of adding landscaping? I bring my car there, but they could use a few more trees and shrubs. I don't know if there's room, but it would be nice to have a little more landscaping.
I mean, we'd have to lose parking and there is some landscape islands in front. It's just a change in use. We're not changing any, we're not expanding the building. We hadn't anticipated adding additional landscaping.
Commissioner Randolph?
With regard to the landscaping, what are the regulations if it doesn't comply with our existing landscape ordinance? Grandfathered in,
It's generally only applies to new construction.
new construction. That's why it listed, that's why I want to be curious. I'm just wondering, if, I don't know if you're familiar with their landscaping ordinance of trees per parking space. Did you see that?
Not specifically, no, since it was not.
20?
Sounds about right, but again.
One per
yeah.
20? Yeah, I'm just asking if it would be possible to perhaps donate one tree per 20 parking spaces to the town. Since you're not in compliance at all with the landscape ordinance. Just, it's an
Well-
ask. It's not making.
I'd have to check with the client and also with regards to spacing as to whether or
No,
not.
no, I'm asking to donate to the town trees that could be used in public right of ways.
Oh, in other excuse me, I apologize, in other areas of town.
It's a request. It's not a condition.
And Mr. Perkins is here and he said, yes, he'd be happy to do that.
Much appreciated. And I think you should get a lot of publicity for that. I mean, we should make sure you get positive publicity because it's good for the community and I think it addresses. Commissioner Braun?
I agree with you
Okay,
totally.
good. You like that one?
Okay, I
Okay.
apologize because I misunderstood your question.
No, because I know there's not space there, but it's a, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? Further?
I think there's no other
Okay.
questions.
I think we're good for now. Let me see what if there's anybody here for public and then go from there. I will close the initial presentation portion of this application. Is there any member of the public who's joining us? Let's start in person. Anybody, member of the public joining us in person that wishes to be heard in this application? Any member of the public wish to be heard that's joining us in person? Not seeing anybody. Is there any member of the public who's joining us remotely or by phone that wishes to be heard in this application? 176 Linwood Avenue. If you're joining us by phone, please press *6 to unmute yourself. Seeing anybody, Ms. Harrigan? Last call, any member of the public in person, by phone or remote that wishes to be heard in this application? Not hearing anyone, I'll close the public comment portion of this application. All right, Constantine, I'm sure you're all set then? No member of the public?
If there's no further questions, I'm good, Your Honor.
Any further? I think it was very straightforward. Thank you very much. I'll close the hearing on this application. Thank you. Call 2179 and 2199 Post Road, 9 Fairfield Place, zoning compliance application of Sunshine Development LLC pertaining to a 60-unit residential development pursuant to section 830G of the Connecticut statutes in the design commercial district. Attorney Fallon, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I am an attorney here in Fairfield, and I am representing the applicant before you this evening. Seated to my left is Mr. Mark Andre, who not only is our architect with regard to this proposal, but is also a principal of the applicant Sunshine Development LLC. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, because we're all dealing in uncharted waters here. And I commend the commission as you, and I've said this before in other hearings, it's amazing. And someday somebody's gonna look back at the work on this commission every single Tuesday night as we dig through this backlog occasioned by the events that have occurred, the moratorium being one, to your credit, But that has led to where we find ourselves now, and unfortunately, we're gonna find ourselves at least one more time in terms of applications that I'm involved in. And what is that? We have a piece of property that my client has proposed a beautiful mixed-use development for. And you diligently pursued that over, I want to say, 4 nights of public hearing. And at the conclusion of that, after consideration, you were good enough to approve the application. We appreciate that, and we thank you for that. That's the development we want to bring forth on this property. That's the development you want us to bring forth on this property. And considering alternatives, I think that's the development that a lot of people in the neighborhood want to see us bring forth on the property. But unfortunately, as is the rights pursuant to statute, people have appealed that decision. We had hoped that perhaps that would not occur, and that would have allowed us to withdraw the application that's before you tonight and proceed with the application that we all prefer. But we're here. Having said that, however, I'm not here to apologize for this application. I'm not here with my client on my knees on this application. I'm not an apologist for this application, because the application, as we will set forth, complies with the law pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 8-30G. It is a worthy application. There may be some people in the community who would prefer to see a purely residential development here bringing 60 units forth as opposed to the mixed use which you've approved. I don't concur with that, but I don't think there's any detrimental impact associated with the 8-30G application we bring before you tonight. So the elephant's out of the room now, and let's clear the deck. And this is an application that comes before you in your statutory capacity pursuant to 8-30G. We'll offer evidence, and we hope you will, in your diligence and your respect for the law, which you constantly show with regard to applications, such as the one you heard earlier tonight, approve this application, because it should be approved, because it conforms with the statute. So what are we doing? We're proposing a 60-unit multifamily residential development at these properties. The property is located in the Center Design Business District, based upon your recent actions along State Route 1, and is bordered by a mix of office and commercial and residential uses. The proposal, which Mark will review briefly with you in a minute, calls for a 55 one-bedroom and 5 studio units. As I said, the proposal is submitted in accordance with the Affordable Housing Land Use Appeals Act, Section 8-30G. We have submitted an affordability plan. That's at pages 5 through 25 of your material. That has been reviewed by the Economic Development Director, and I think he had a couple of comments, all of which we have modified, and I think we're in accordance with that. In accordance with 8-30G, obviously 30% of the units, 18 in total, will be deed restricted as affordable for a period of 40 years. 9 of those units will be reserved for persons earning less than 60% of the statewide median income. That will be 1 studio and 8 one-bedroom units. Similarly, 9 units will be reserved for persons earning less than 80% of the statewide median income. Again, 1 studio unit and 8 one-bedroom units. Our plan calls to make at least 1 affordable unit ADA compliant. That would be one of the one-bedroom units. Based upon experience with similar developments, many of which you have approved, we anticipate that these units, both the affordable and the market rate units, will be occupied by people over 50 years old and their younger people. All individuals who want to stay in Fairfield or reside in Fairfield and be able to continue to make or start to make personal and economic contributions to our community. I am not going to read the litany of the need for affordable housing in the town of Fairfield. You are well aware of it. It will be part of the record, as I'll elaborate on briefly. And has been pointed out by other commissioners, there is no accusation here relative, nor have I ever, when I bring these before you, suggested that the town of Fairfield has not and is not, and this commission in particular, is not committed and focused on affordable housing. The realities are, however, despite best intentions of all, we are still a community with significant need for affordable housing. And that is spelled out in my material, when you go through it, and it's things you've seen before. We still maintain the lowest percentage of 22 block grant entitlement communities. The material I submit, pages 32 through 77 of my volume that I submitted to you, denotes a lot of instances that document that need in our continuing efforts. Probably the most compelling is the material found at page 63, and that's the excerpts from the 2022-2027 Affordable Housing Plan prepared by the Affordable Housing Committee and dated May 18, 2022. I'm not going to read that to you. I know in your due diligence, you read it, you're familiar with it. What I will say is that this proposal, the 60-unit proposal that's for you here tonight, will serve a significant housing need in our town. As I said, for people looking to downsize, for people living to come and stay in the community they grow up in, and opportunities for workforce, opportunities for town employees and the like. So the record is replete with the material that I submitted, especially those quotes from the Affordable Housing Committee study in 2022. And I know you'll take that into consideration. At this time, we want to turn to the project itself. Before I give you a very brief overview, hopefully not stealing Mark's thunder. I think you're going to find it attractive, very functional in design as well. The building consists of approximately 59,626 square feet. We have 75 parking spaces. I'll elaborate on parking shortly. Mark will talk to you about the building and its compliance with code. We are making provision in accordance with the fire marshal's request for an NFPA 13 system. And I think at this point, Mark, I'll turn it over to you to give an overview of the architectural design and also the interior layout.
Hi, thank you, John. Before I wear my architect's hat, I'd like to say a few comments on behalf of our company, Sunshine Acquisition Group. I'll try to be brief. I had a big speech, but John cut my time to 10 minutes. Yes, I'm here. I'm back. Yeah, with a few more grays, a little bit humbler, slightly over-caffeinated, with a beautiful tent. Still chasing the plan like he owes me money. You're right. We were all here not too long ago looking at these properties. Back then, we came close, 2/3 close, as required by my neighbors. Before an appeal of your approval knock us off balance. That's democracy in motion, and I respect it. I also believe in second chances, especially when they come with better clarity, sharper insight, and let's be honest, few surprises. Put it this way, I went away, some guy from Chicago got nominated Pope. Never know. Maybe we can reimagine what's possible on this patch of land too, and probably a simple majority should suffice, but a unanimous vote from this commission would be, let's say, really, 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 really great. I had some comment about misinformation, personal attacks, defamatory statement made directed at members of this commission to social media, particularly in connection with our previous application. Similar tactics have been directed at us in effort to discourage the redevelopment of our properties. While we welcome, respect different opinions, it is unfortunate that some have resorted to personal attacks when their argument failed to carry the day. Despite these challenges, including an appeal filed by my neighbors, we remain deeply respectful of your role, our neighbors, in the land use process established by Connecticut state statute and the town of Fairfield. Regardless of the outcome of our current application, please know that we hold each of you in the highest regard. Your professionalism
and dedication to this process has been invaluable. All right, now I am the architect. Enough of my complaints. Let's talk about our building. It's a beautiful day. I am very proud to propose you another proposal to redevelop our properties. That's involve a vacant lot, a cigar store, 2 family residences, a small parking lot, single family. I am not gonna go through the fact that you approve a mixed use application. But I'll tell you what our new building is all about. It is a 100% residential development with 75 parking garage. The building will rise approximately 62 feet 4 inches above existing grade. Our ground floor is surrounded by pedestrian elements, greenways. We have 4 units at the ground floor. We have amenity space. We have 2 lobbies. We have management offices and few more amenities. We also have at the ground floor a public plaza, 2 publicly accessible, one at the corner of Fairfield Place and the Post Road, and the other at the corner of the Post Road and Lindbergh. Provided a pocket park along the southern portion of the site linking Fairfield Place to Lindbergh Street. It's a beautiful curated space that serves as a buffer between our building and the adjacent properties that will be both functionally and aesthetic. Our building has several tenant amenities areas, private and shared green spaces. We have co-working space, we have lounging areas, we have packaging spaces, lockers. We have loading and unloading area for our tenant when they decide to move in, even though not required under your regulations or under this under the state statute for this application. But it'll be functional for us, the way we can operate this building. We have bike parking dispersed throughout the site. In our 5th floor, we have 2 more units. We have lounging areas, clubhouses, fitness room with integrated golf simulators. 4 people do golf, by the way. Outdoor areas will include a micro zen garden with various seating areas and an endless pool. That little endless pool basically is like an exercise pool. 2 people cannot be in it, just 1 person at a time. We also, the way we design our building, we maximize the southern exposure for natural light. We incorporated triple glazing, high efficiency HVAC, and automated electrical system in each unit to minimize energy usage. We also contemplated a solar install and green roof to help reduce electricity consumption in the long-term operating of our building. This site is well supported by public infrastructure, a bus line within walking distance of the Fairfield train station. We have shops, restaurant, medical, and professional offices nearby. In the overall, that's our project. But now let me tell you why this project matters. There's no architectural test for this project, so I don't really want to tell you about all our beautiful pictures, the nice aesthetic of our building, and how we think it's gonna be a nice add-on to our that stretch up the Post Road. As a longtime Fairfield resident and architect, I've seen how outdated regulation have hindered the creation of new housing development in our town. Housing affordability is a growing crisis both in Connecticut and across the nation. I'm a member of the American Institute of Architects. I don't have to tell you much about that. According to a survey from my organization, the American Institute of Architects, our national organization, that came out this year, and the US Conference of Mayors, we face a national shortfall of 4 to 7 million housing units, and it is expected to grow by 4 million over the 5 years. Rising costs of housing is a significant issue, with nearly 40% of American households spending more than 40% of their income on housing expenses. Connecticut, home prices has risen 7% since 2020. In Fairfield, median home prices are approaching $900,000, pushing homeownership out of reach for many. With COVID-19, underutilized commercial properties like our properties offer potential for redevelopment into needed housing. While our proposal won't solve the crisis, it certainly can contribute to alleviating some of the financial pressure, providing much needed affordable housing option in a meaningful way. What are the project benefits to this community? Every $1 invested in housing generates about $4 in local economy. There's going to be a ripple effect. Additionally, every $1 million invested in housing creation will create about 10 to 15 jobs. Our project will promote a workable community, less reliance on cars, more access to local amenities, and will contribute to environmental sustainability and a higher quality of life. This development will provide a diverse range of housing options, including below market rate, helping to meet the demand of affordable houses in this town where I've lived for the past 25 years. Our projects seek to repurpose underutilized commercial property, addressing the growing demand for housing while giving new energy to that stretch of town. It's really needed. Chairman Noonan and distinguished commissioners, let me emphasize this. I am a licensed architect in the state of Connecticut. Architects, engineers have the ethical responsibility to protect the public health, safety, and the welfare. We are committed to adhering to all applicable building codes and regulations. Should any requirement change during the permitting process review, we will update our plans to remain in full compliance. So we respectfully ask you to approve this project, as we believe it will provide critical housing option for Fairfield. It will stimulate local economic growth and will contribute positively to the long-term development of our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Talking about, went through the fact that this is residential. One of the other, I would say, maybe smaller elephants in the room is even previously with the previous zone, but even now, we have a commercial zone. And one of the things that I've been wrestling with, especially after Umpqua, which I'll talk about in a quick second, is you have this proposal, 30G residential coming into commercial, and at the very least, not providing commercial and taking away a potential commercial area there, use there. One of the things that we should be doing, I think, is protecting our commercial zones, expanding upon it to important tax base, all that kind of, all those policy decisions that go with it. I had thought that was a strong argument when we had 15 Umpqua. That application came to us however long ago. That was a reason for one of our denials. Court kind of surprised me. The decision kind of surprised us, I think, certainly me, while we acknowledge it, I'll summarize it pretty quickly. While we acknowledge that's a reason, it hasn't reached a tipping point for it to outweigh the need for affordable housing, something to that effect. Right. So I'm not sure that case is on appeal. We'll see where it goes. That was something I've been wrestling with because not only do we have that, we have this application, which we saw, we had Circle Inn coming down the pike. And the concern I had was an influx of 830Gs and hitting that tipping point with commercial. So part of my concern with this kind of an application is somewhat of the uncertainty, because I don't know where the courts are thinking about that. And the thing that will hurt is potentially Fairfield commercial areas until that's either that the Superior Court's right, we go down that route, we have to hit a certain tipping point, which I don't know when that's the case. So without going, one of the things I've been wrestling with is whether one of the things that we can do to address that or protect against that or hedge against that is look to the reasonable accommodation language of the statute and ask applicants like yourself who are coming into an 830G into a commercial area is to make a reasonable accommodation to have a commercial use or commercial area on at least the ground floor, because that's where would be appropriate.
Right.
Problem with that is,
You can't do it.
well, I mean, in my opinion, we've said that in Ruane Street,
Yeah.
where we said, I think rightfully so.
We said it on the post road too, not to interrupt you, but next to St. Thomas Church when,
Well, that's Ruane Street, I think.
oh, Wayne, you got,
You're
I'm
right.
sorry.
So-
Yeah, right.
I thought we were absolutely right in saying that the text of that 830G only allows for residential. But at the same time, I think we've identified a reasonable, a fair concern that's within our jurisdiction to consider 830G denials, losing commercial, and that we're required to do a reasonable accommodation. One that this reasonable accommodation could potentially bring us into whether that's, the fundamentals of an 830G with residential.
I feel like I'm doing a law school exam, but
No, no,
I
but
have,
that's-
I want
I
to,
think I don't think I was unclear with how I was
No,
kind
I-
of positioning this. So I'd like your thoughts and opinions on taking a reasonable accommodation route.
Mhm.
Asking not just you, but should we have this go forward, circle in potentially as well, to have a potential either condition of approval or without a denial, but a condition of approval to come back with having a commercial use in the bottom.
well, I think it's a very good question and I'll give you my answer. I think you raise two questions. The first one, which has its roots in the Umpqua case, is reasonable accommodation, okay? And the loss of commercial zone property for residential use. And then the second question is, well, I'll call the Ruane Street situation, which we wrestled with, 7 years ago? And that is, does it make sense to allow some commercial component in it in the context of an 8-30G? Okay, let me start with the second. I've always felt, and I was the advocate before the applicant on the Ruane Street thing. And you remember the problem was, and I commend him, Chairman Wagner at the time had a problem with that because the case law was not significant. And his position was, how can you get the benefit of 8-30G, throw away the zoning regulations and still develop a commercial component? You remember that was the whole thing.
I remember, I
Okay.
thought I was the one who spearheaded that.
But I remember.
Yeah, you and
We all
I.
did. And you'll recall it was what the applicant wanted to do.
Yes.
The original, yeah, we didn't want to do the first floor. Okay. But my feeling on reflection on that question is the only way that can be properly clarified so that the commission has that flexibility in terms of its toolbox is through a legislative amendment. I don't read 8-30G. I think if you applied a commercial component to an 8-30G project in its current capacity, although I argued before you at the time that I thought if it was only a matter of percentages and if it was a small, I don't think that would ultimately fly. However, I think it's something from a legislative standpoint that could be addressed statutorily. That gets to the first point. With all due respect to the court, I read the extensive Umpqua Road decision. And like you, I disagreed with it, but for the other reasons. I thought the entire tipping point argument in that case that was at least kind of discussed was totally misplaced. Because again, I don't think there's anything in the statute or the case law that provides a commission the right to deny or modify an 8-30G application because they're worried about losing commercial viability or a portion. And indeed, what contrary to that, something Mark said before, in some instances, it's a positive thing. The commercial property that we're talking about now is
Thank you.
do I get a royalty for that? Am I being recorded?
YouTube time, I don't need.
But to get back to the point, Look, 8-30G, and we're gonna get into it in a second, and you guys know it, it's pretty simple. It says the only way you can deny an application is if there is, probable evidence in the record that provides a basis for a finding that there's a public health and safety issue that outweighs the need for affordable
Public
housing.
Health and safety, it's any, and other factors within our
And
consideration.
with your kids, right. I think it's a stretch personally. I respect the judge and the court, but I think is a stretch to take that general language and start talking about, tipping points and denial of commercial. There again, there's a potential for a statutory
But the
amendment.
court did say to us, hold on. The court did say the commercial aspect was a legitimate concern for us to consider.
They did.
And the tipping point argument, I think was more towards the outweighing the need for affordable, whether it outweighed the need for affordable housing, which I would have thought once we identified a need, we identified a concern, he acknowledged that. I mean, to me, the outweigh the need for affordable housing is one of the most amorphous standards.
Mhm.
I have yet to see actually what a definitive standard is. I wish somebody would challenge it on vagueness, but I mean, that's a 30-year-old statute. I
guess-
don't think you can do, but.
I'm personally not persuaded that the broad general language of other considerations, other things within your consideration allows you to extrapolate an argument and say, under the statute as presently written and the case law as presently decided, I'm going to deny this affordable housing application because I'm concerned that we're eating up commercial space in our town. We'll see how it comes out. As
No,
you say,
but
the
that's-
case is under appeal, but
Yeah.
it's not persuasive to me.
Yeah, okay. I'll go down the line. Commissioner Levy, then Braun.
Yeah, if I can just jump in, and I remember Ruane Street well, and you'll remember that Commissioner Wagner and I had a significant discussion. It was my position that it was essentially residential, and if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it is a duck, and it's primarily a residential development.
Right.
The situation we have here is the court has, recognized the threat to the commercial corridor as being a legitimate concern under an 830G. What are your thoughts if I remember correctly, there's 4 residential units on the Post Road meeting room, is that correct?
We have 4 residential unit at the ground floor. We have co-working space along the plaza at the corner of Fairfield Place and the Post Road. And we have a lounging area near the plaza at the corner of Lindbergh and the Post Road. Our main entrance lobby is still in the middle.
So if those 4 residential units were converted, roughly how much commercial space? But could that be 2 realistic commercial spaces there?
So if I follow your logic, I would say we need our management space at the ground floor.
Mhm.
We we want pedestrian to be able to come through to the front door of our development that's connect to the courtyard. And if you remember in our previous application, all the other spaces along, Lindbergh and the plaza area, they were commercial space. So do we need the lounging area at the ground floor at the plaza near Lindbergh and the Post Road? All of that could be converted, but we would still want to have our main lobby remain the same and office spaces as. But I'm sorry, Ms. Harrigan, can you show the ground floor plan, please?
But how much space about is, let's just say the units.
It's less than we had in our commercial space in the previous application. But let me see if maybe I can give you a little idea there.
I figure their units are what, 1,000 square feet?
No, it's not that.
Here, I can
It's
tell
not
you, because I had that information. The units range in size, while Mark is looking that up, from.
1 bedroom is 6.
Yeah, I got it here. I don't know why I'm not finding it.
1 bedrooms are between 660 and 850.
You got it.
So figure at 700 by 4, 2,800, potentially 2,500, 3,000 square feet.
Yeah, you could, I mean, our co-working space is about 1,200 square feet. I think we could keep that. I mean, you could get a decent commercial space if you want.
So just following it through to conclusion, rather than, for instance, denying based on the threat to commercial, if a reasonable accommodation were to be that those four residential units be converted to commercial. I don't know that you would appeal it. And if somebody else appealed it on that basis, the court would.
Who would ever do a thing like
The
that?
court would likely say that they found the reasonable accommodation to be unreasonable, and therefore the project would be approved as totally residential.
I mean, you can see the conundrum we're in here. I mean,
We're
look,
already in a conundrum.
we have a lot of respect for this commission, and we appreciate your prior approval, and we appreciate the sentiment that you and the chair and maybe others on the commission are trying to express. But I worry about the state of the law, because let's suppose we could all say, we think that's a great idea. And let's suppose my client, I don't mean to speak for him on this point because we haven't discussed it, but I think based upon the prior application, he'd probably say, sure, I can convert that. It'd be nice to have a little coffee shop or something down there. Then we all approve it and someone appeals it. Now I'm hostage for the next 2 years to a determination on the issue of, without any statutory authority, can an 8-30G application have a commercial non-residential component? I'm in a bad spot there.
There's gonna be an
Finally
appeal,
get-
there's gonna be an appeal.
Yeah, but at least that's one issue I won't have to worry about.
No, I know, but it also kind of sheds some light on what we can do. 'Cause
Yeah, at my client's
No, I mean-
long-term expense.
Chairman?
He becomes
I'm not
the.
disagreeing with you. I mean, I'm just, that's the conundrum we're in, because I thought, and it's Braun and then Harrison next.
Harrison.
Did I say that?
You
No,
said
Yeah,
Harrison.
you said,
I've been going between Harrigan and Harrison, I'm sorry. I mean, that's the conundrum we face, because I thought Umpqua was, with the commercial aspect, was gonna be the denial that was gonna be upheld, and tipping point thing threw us all off.
Yeah.
And I don't wanna get to a tipping point. I don't know what a tipping point means.
I kind of think, and again, I don't want to get in trouble with the judge, who I respect and who wrote a very thorough decision. But I think he kind of drifted into the tipping point because he was unsure of the basic underlying premise. And that is that you could in fact equate other considerations that you can properly consider with the diminution of commercial
I mean, but
zone
historic-
space. Because I, as a judge, if I were an appellate judge, I wouldn't buy that. Based
I mean,
upon the
historic-
present state of the
but
statute.
The courts have established that historic reasons.
It is, they have.
So I mean, environmental as
But
well,
that's more specific than just generally commercially zoned property.
but you also have the idea that the 830G is residential in itself.
Right.
So putting it in commercial and square peg in a round hole type attitude.
Yeah, it's a fascinating discussion and it's a worthy consideration, and we'll see how Umpqua turns out. It would be clearer or cleaner, and I know this is Ms. Harrison, Commissioner Harrison would probably tell me it might be a pipe dream, that the legislature could address these things in a constructive way. But I guess our position for this record is we would be very amenable and understand why you might want to do that, but we don't think we're unconvinced that could not taint your ultimate approval as conditioned of the 8-30G and leave my client in a hostage situation where we do a test case and we go on for 1.5 years and we lose. And meantime, you got the moratorium.
But just to put a pin in, at least then I'll get to Commissioner Braun. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
I want to just finish up.
Oh, you do? Okay, I mean, my thought would have been commercial is a legitimate other consideration.
Mhm.
So my kind of initial thoughts would have been reasonable accommodation route. But if not that, potentially now that we still haven't really it's on appeal of someone not being clear, a denial for that simple reason. Because we don't want to lose commercial in that area. But your thought is no for reasonable accommodation because you don't believe it's supported by the law. But even so, going to that second point with commercial, you don't believe that that's a sufficient consideration for a sufficient factor for our consideration.
I do not. And, but if you were going to choose between those two options, obviously I would prefer the reasonable accommodation option and an approval. And then fence on the issue of whether or not an HS30G could include what I would call is not particularly substantial
No, thank you.
commercial.
Levy, finish up and then.
Yeah,
Ron
just
and
to
Harrison.
finish up, and you may prefer not to answer this, but my understanding has always been that you prefer to proceed with the mixed use, but you have an appeal pending.
That's what I said, yeah.
Presumably, assuming we were to grant the 830G based on the law or grant an 830G with a condition of commercial, assuming there was no appeal on either of those, would you then continue with the appeal on the mixed use or actually proceed on the 830G?
Give me that again, I'm sorry.
If the 830G in whatever form is approved or with reasonable accommodation.
It's not appeal.
And it's not appealed, would the intention then be to proceed on the 830G because the other matter's an appeal?
That's a topic I'd have to discuss,
I
obviously.
said you may not want to.
I mean, that's something that that's something that we haven't discussed. I will turn it on my head a little bit or not, it's not turn up, but just to make another point growing out of that. There might be some people, I'm not saying this is what you're thinking, but I could see somebody saying, well, look, we approve the mixed use and maybe we should just, deny the 8-30G because we really prefer the mixed use. But I think that's very counterproductive to the prospect of ultimately bringing the mixed use to fruition. Because with all due respect to the plaintiff's rights to pursue the appeal on the mixed use, which they are doing, I'd like to have the 8-30G standing front and center as an approved project. So we could all, including the plaintiffs, give some serious thought to where we really want to go. And so I think if the goal is to facilitate ultimately the construction of the mixed use development you approved a few weeks ago, it would be consistent with that desire to approve this 8-30G application. And getting back to the chairman's comments, I mean, it's interesting. I certainly wouldn't think that a denial of this application on the record that is going to be before you in terms of things like traffic and sewer and so on, solely because you were worried about the loss of commercially zoned property in town, I strongly don't think that would pass judicial scrutiny. The other question is a more tempting question, which we've all, those of us who are on the commission or appearing before the commission, can you have a commercial component of an 8-30G if it's fairly accessory? It's an interesting question. And as we know, the law was not particularly helpful there. That was surprising. There's still no law on it. So that's a tougher question, but it does scare me for this client because I'd hate to be a test case for that.
Commissioner Braun, oh, I'm sorry, were you done?
Yeah, just one last
Sorry.
possibility, and I see Attorney Green scratching his head for the record, so.
I'm still here too.
Be that as it may. I mean, what are your thoughts about a conditional for approval, which would be in the alternative that approved with a condition that the commercial be in place? But in the event of an appeal, then the project would be approved as 100% residential if it should be appealed on that basis alone. Sort of a self-actuating conditional approval, giving you either.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only problem with that is I think if it is appealed, when it is appealed, I don't think that would be an issue that would be raised, I'm sure, about the commercial, but they'd raise all the other issues as well. So I'd still have an appeal. But I'd have an appeal then with an issue that troubles me. Whereas an appeal here on general public health and safety issues, especially in light of the record of the prior hearing, which I'm going to ask be incorporated here before we're finished, that doesn't trouble me. But the commercial thing is dicey.
Thank you.
Commissioner Braun, then Harrison.
Like slight clarification. So if you were to approve it with the condition that as a reasonable accommodation, we need commercial on the ground floor, isn't that sort of the same argument as if we deny it because there's no commercial? Isn't it the same thing that we have to consider commercial within our jurisdictional authority?
No, I think they're different because I think that if you just outright deny the application based upon a concern about the diminution of commercial zoning, I don't think that would withstand judicial
But
scrutiny.
that would be our position as a legal.
Yeah, but I don't think you'd win. I mean,
You're saying that's a separate
but
argument.
that's a different approach
Okay.
than what Commissioners Levy and Chairman Noonan are saying, which is, we're gonna approve it, but we're gonna approve it as a reasonable accommodation issue with an area of, accessory commercial space.
That has nothing to do with whether the commercial is within our jurisdictional authority on which to deny.
Well, I think it does
I was
somewhat.
gonna say, it flows.
Okay.
Yeah, it definitely is tied to it, but I just think it gets more to the judges in Uncqua's position about, the tipping point
Okay,
situation.
so then I have a just second minor clarification. So when something goes up on appeal, in my opinion, all bets are off. You can settle it for anything you want. It doesn't have to be 30% affordable. It could be 10% affordable. We could add commercial. It's on appeal. You're settling a case. It started as 830G. In my opinion, I think our town council has told us there's no requirement that you do any type of thing on appeal because the 30% affordable requirement is against the applicant to avail themselves of not having to follow zoning laws. So we should be able to approve a settlement like 15 Uncqua is on appeal. Ruane Street, I don't think went on appeal. That was before.
Well, you got the example of that, the more recent example of that is the long discussions that we all had on Berkeley. And ultimately you determined not to do it, but one of the things that was on the table there.
I think we could have reduced.
Yeah, right, I agree with you.
I don't
That
think
was,
there's any requirement that we stick with 30%.
that was before you in Berkeley. And you just decided to, after hearing the public, et cetera, you decided to just let the court decide.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Harrison?
Sorry, just a few questions. So I just to clarify, Attorney Fallon, you're requesting that the record of your applicant's first case, which was approved, to be in this record?
Yes, since you're going to have to prepare that record anyway, I wouldn't want to burden the commission because it's going to be an exhaustive record. But you're going to have to prepare that full record anyway for purposes of the now pending appeal. I am requesting that record be made part of the record of this 8-30G application because I think there's relevance to it in terms of your considerations and your review of things involving site engineering and traffic and the like. So yes.
Okay, and just for the record, I wasn't informed until just a few moments ago that was on appeal. So that was news to me. That just wasn't made aware to this commission.
It was just, in fairness to I think it was just filed last Friday. I think it was filed, so it's very recent.
Okay. All right, very good. Then I have a question just to maybe through to the chairman. Could we get a legal opinion on your question about a reasonable accommodation? Because I think it's something that we should explore as a commission. Can we get that from Attorney Pierce?
If people request it, then so be it, I guess. I'm not sure that I don't personally need it. I think that's up to us in a lot of ways.
I mean, you just had a good exchange with an applicant's lawyer. I would just like to hear from the town side on what they think of that, because I think it is a very intriguing concept that we should explore. So I hope that I would at least be in favor of getting a legal opinion on that. So perhaps you could guide me on how we do that.
Yeah, that'll be something we can discuss with staff because I was not inclined to ask our town attorney on that. But if others are asking for it, not really sure.
I mean, as much as I respect Mr. Fallon, he is the attorney for an applicant. And I always like to hear both sides of things before I render a decision. So I think that would be fair.
I mean, there's no doubt that he's the advocate for the applicant and that's fair. But I'm not sure if I wanted to we'll talk, can we talk about that offline? Or
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, certainly. Thank you. All right, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Just we don't need to revisit Berkeley in 30%, but I think the majority of us who voted, or the reason that did not go forward as far as settlement for less than 30% was differing opinion than Commissioner Braun and Attorney Fallon, which is fine, but that doesn't need to be discussed here.
Correct. You're right. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Anything further? I mean, I just.
yeah, I mean, if you want me to
No,
continue?
continue. Yeah, sorry, I figured.
So just a few,
You have questions on this?
I'll wait till you.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
a few comments on parking. The parking ratio here is 1.25 per unit. We're very confident that's gonna meet the needs of our residents and guests. That parking ratio is consistent with other approved 8-30Gs in Fairfield that you have approved. And that parking ratio of a parking ratio of 1.2, which is a little less than what we are proposing at 1.25, was found by the court to be sufficient in the matter of Garden Homes Management Corporation. And that was a finding on the parking issue by both the Superior and the Appellate Court. It's also consistent with provisions of your own regulations with regard to residential requirements for parking with regard to units in some proximity to the railroad station. So we feel very comfortable and confident on both the practical and legal basis that we have sufficient parking on site. We've obviously had the project reviewed by engineering. We have approval indeed for highly significantly more units from WPCA. We've worked carefully with the fire marshal on the site plan to make sure all interests are accommodated there. And as you'll hear in a moment, the site plan and engineering are generally identical to the mixed use proposal that you approved a few weeks ago. So we're very comfortable with that as well. I should, again, just for this record and not to lecture this commission on something that they already know, but I always hand this out. These are just a brief synopsis of the legal standards that are applicable. And they're well stated by Ms. Harrigan in your deliberative sessions, but I do think, as we've done in the past, it's important for the record, but it's also important for anybody in the public who may be considering this and may not be as familiar with the standards of 8-30G and what has to guide the commission, that I briefly review this. 8-30G provides that once an appeal is taken from the denial of an 8-30G application, the commission has the burden to prove, based upon the evidence in the record, that one, the decision is necessary to protect substantial public interest in health, safety, or other matters which the commission may legally consider. Two, that such public interests clearly outweigh the need for affordable housing. And three, that such public interest cannot be protected by reasonable changes to the affordable housing development. Our Supreme Court, in numerous cases, has instructed that there has to be more than a mere theoretical possibility of a specific harm to the public interest if the application is granted. The record must establish, and I quote the case law as we go through this, that there is more than a possibility of harm to the substantial public interest. The record must contain evidence as to a quantifiable probability that a specific harm will result if the application is granted. Mere concerns alone do not amount to sufficient evidence to support the denial of an affordable housing application. Again, there must be evidence of a quantifiable probability that a specific harm will result if the application is granted. Concerns are not sufficient. There was a case, one of the earlier cases in where the court found, this is the West Hartford case, that concerns about density did not in and of itself outweigh the need for affordable housing. Again, the commission must prove that the public interest outweighs the need for affordable housing presented in the particular proposal. So I won't read all of these to you, but the real key thing, as Ms. Harrigan pointed out in your work session before, is you have to show, based upon evidence of a record, that there's a quantifiable probability that a specific harm will result and that mere concerns are not sufficient. That is generally satisfied when it is by expert testimony. And in this case, I submit to you when the record is completed, and I am making my summation, there will be no evidence, certainly no evidence creating a quantifiable probability of any such negative impact on public health and safety. So Mark has already given you the overview on architecture. As I said, the site plan and the site engineering is substantially unchanged here. But for the record, I think we're joined tonight by Wayne Devanzo. Wayne, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Wayne is our engineer, site engineer from Fairfield County Engineering. And he was obviously also the architect who testified before you a few, the engineer, I'm sorry. The engineer who testified before you on the mixed use application a month or so ago. But Wayne, could you just give an overview with regard to this site plan and the site engineering? Ms. Harrigan can put the site plan up or any other filed documents that you would like.
Certainly, certainly. Again, Wayne Devanzo, Fairfield County Engineering for the applicant. We used a fresh meadow approach in the drainage analysis for this property as we did for the mixed use development. That means that we considered the existing conditions to be a vacant lot, a lawn vacant lot, and didn't take any credit for the actual existing impervious surfaces that do exist on the property. This is conservative and creates a low target runoff value that we have to meet for the new development. And you know, again, using this approach, we developed the drainage system, again, identical really to the drainage system in the mixed use development. It consists of 3 sets of concrete galleries. One set, the first set collecting a portion of the roof and the parking area. The second set collecting another portion of the building roof, and the third set collecting the third area of the building roof. Basically, the way it works is the first, when it overflows, cascades into the second set, and so on to the third set. And with this system, we are mitigating the runoff for the 1 through 100-year storms. They are all being reduced again from that lower fresh meadow value, and not the actual runoff of what's on the site today. And we are recharging the groundwater with by routing runoff to these galleries and then percolating it into the soil. Soil tests were done on the property to establish where these restrictive layers were. And none were found actually in the soil, and percolation tests were done, which were used as the basis for the design. We were very conservative with the percolation results. We applied a factor of safety of nearly 4 to the worst of the 4, I believe it was 3 or 4 perk tests that were done. The standard is usually a factor of safety of 2. So this is a very conservative design, and meets the town's stormwater management policies and goals. And happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Wayne. Question?
Mr. Braun?
Is the impervious surface the same on this project as the prior project?
Yes, it is.
And on the prior project, I'm trying to remember, the engineer that spoke in opposition said that there was a problem with, I think, the testing. It had to do with doing perk tests. Did you do perk tests or I think infiltrator tests? Because you're supposed to do one and not the other.
Yes, the perk tests were done. That is the standard that the town allows and the town uses. That is what was done, and those are the perks that I was referring to.
My understanding is that the stormwater manual, the 24 one, says you have to use infiltrator tests, not perk tests.
I believe they say you have to use the borehole infiltration type tests. Again, that's a recommendation. The town of Fairfield has not required that. As a matter of practice in engineering, the town engineer did review this and made no comment about that, and was aware of it and approved it.
We did make a point-by-point response to the engineering comments that were made in the last hearing. And since I've asked that the record of that last hearing be made part of the record this hearing, I think the commission can certainly properly avail themselves of any questions. And because Mr. DiVincenzo did in fact address point by point those questions, and as far as the infiltrators with the support of the town engineer, I think the commission was
Okay,
satisfied.
so is the footprint exactly identical and the underground structures are exactly identical? I mean, can we just assume there's no difference between this project and the last one?
Yeah, they are identical. Yeah.
So,
From a footprint standpoint, at least, yeah.
Yeah, so there was a confusion between, so when you, in the document that I provided, building coverage for us is the building footprint. The impervious area to compute drainage takes into account impervious area beyond the building footprint. In the zoning regulation for the mixed use that we looked at, you look at building footprint as building coverage. But the building, the total lot coverage to compute, to design the drainage system goes beyond the building footprint.
But they're the same.
But in this application, the building footprint is the same because the current building footprint is the parking garage, and the parking garage footprint is exactly the same.
And is the impervious surface the same on both applications? What is the impervious
Yes.
surface on this one?
Same exact.
Same exact.
But what is it? I mean,
It's 80+%. So the concern, the discrepancy between the impervious area in the mixed use application, when we address it for the mixed use, we also address it for this 830G because we knew it was gonna come up. So that's been addressed.
The engineering design, the building footprint, the impervious surface, it's identical. The only thing that's changed is, obviously the use change and some elements of the architecture.
You got more parking.
so,
More parking.
so engineering gave a different review of this one and they had similar questions from the last one? Is that what you were saying? You answered their questions from the last one?
What I said was, during the course of the hearing on the mixed use application, questions were raised by the opponent's engineers.
Mhm.
Some of them included points you were referencing in terms of test borings,
Mhm.
et cetera, et cetera. And that as part of the record in that hearing, we submitted oral and a written response point by point as part of our rebuttal to the comments made by the opponent's engineer. And they are, they're in that record, and now hopefully they'll be in this
I
record.
think they should be submitted as part of this record. Just so
We
that,
can certainly do that. They're of record now, because they were made part of the original hearing, but I'm happy
I
to
think-
supply
I
copies.
mean, I think we should make the previous part of the record.
Yeah.
I
Previous,
think we have to at this point.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
All right, so we'll do
That's all
that.
I have for now.
Commissioner Randolph.
So-
And then somebody,
I'm sorry, your civil engineer's name.
Mr. DiVincenzo.
Wayne, that's fine.
Wayne, just to be clear, you received a review letter from the town Fairfield's engineer on this design?
At some point, yes, we did on the mixed use development. Yeah.
Right, and so those issues, you addressed, and did you get, did you resolve all of those open issues, or were there any issues that you could not resolve?
They were all resolved.
Okay, so all of the issues related to the stormwater design have been reviewed by the town engineer and have been resolved, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
that's not just on the previous one, that's also on this current one. We didn't just assume that last hearing's approval applied here, I know it's probably form over substance, but we have something for this current application.
I would defer to
That's
Ms.
fine.
Harrigan.
Even if we,
Yes.
Ms. Harrigan, even if we don't, I think we do already, but let's confirm that because.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Wayne.
No,
Bruce? So just to clarify, and this is a rather awkward question, but there's been some question over the thoroughness or the completeness of some of these reviews. In your mind, did the engineer from the town of Fairfield have the correct professional qualifications and dedicate the correct amount of time to review this project and provide substantial comments that indicated they had a knowledge of the system design and any of the issues that may have arisen?
Well, I can't speak to how much time he put into it. Really have no idea, but just based on the comments back and the tenor of the questions, he certainly seemed to be knowledgeable. I would say, consistent with other town engineers that I've experienced.
Okay, thanks.
Somebody have their hand up that I missed.
I just want to recall Mr. Andre briefly, just because we should touch on landscaping. And he'll give you a brief overview of that. Thank you.
I'll make it very quick. As you probably can tell in our application, we have a heavily landscape plan, very robust. Currently, there are only a couple trees on our site, one in big invasive maple and a cedar tree. We are proposing over 2,000 trees along, that's included street trees along Fairfield Place, the Post Road, the Landberg, where currently none exists. We provided layers we have a pocket park that has softscapes, hardscapes that provide buffer between our properties and the neighbors. We provided layers of landscaping with different native types species. And our approach to this landscape design is to create a small little ecosystem that will allow this park and all our plants to grow organically. And that would require very little maintenance and low water consumption. In a nutshell, that's basically what our landscape is all about. We have some lighting. We have a lighting plan. We're using pretty much 3 different type of fixtures there. Our lighting plan meets the dark sky. The maximum lumen we have in all our fixtures are no more than 1,000 square feet. Matter in fact, they're less than 900 lumens per fixtures. Let me see. Along the property line in the pocket park, we have a wood fence, but I think I may end up changing it later on. Maybe introduce maybe more like deer fence, so that this way the trees and the shrubs and the plants that we're gonna put along the park, so they can permeate, go through so it looks more organic, so instead of creating like a hard edge that's typically created by a wood fence. I don't think I have anything else
Thank you. Commissioner Ford?
to share.
Just go back to the original, it's 60 units, right?
60 units.
Is that the most you could do? Could you build more?
So interestingly, we could have come back before you with a much larger project.
How large could it be?
I could have pushed like one parking space per unit, probably close to 80 plus units there. Because the sewer approval that we have for the mixed use, we could have used the same number and then design a much larger project. As an architect, I intentionally kept the building footprint exactly the same. The aesthetic of the 830G, as you can tell, is very similar to our mixed use. We kept a lot of the stuff that we discussed during the mixed use, the step backs, keep the building away from the neighbors. As we go up with the upper floor, we step them back, to create, a more articulated facade. We did that purposely. We could have come back and pushed the building. Currently, we could build to the 0-foot lot line on Fairfield Place. We didn't do that. So we use the same architectural design strategy for this project, just to show you how serious we were about the mixed use. And should you approve this thing, we like the idea that it's possible that you could apply the same requirement by requiring, for a single use, like a residential development, to have a 15-foot ceiling at the ground floor. It will give you the illusion that you have commercial space at the ground floor, so it doesn't look like a typical, apartment. So that was done purposely.
And then just another question. So I mean, so at 80, that would be 24 affordable if I do my math quickly, 30%.
We could have put the envelope, we just didn't want to do it that way.
Right. In terms of would you consider, not that this is horse trading, but consider a higher percentage of affordable in exchange for commercial on the bottom? Maybe that could address, I'd have to relook at the decision, the idea of the tipping scale, tipping the scales. Maybe the argument is on a particular project, is commercial. Just kind of thinking out loud, but I mean, would you ever be willing to increase, and I'm not, you can't answer this now.
So Commissioner Ford, let me help you. What you can do, not apply that standard to our 830G. What you can do as you go through the POCD and then change your regulation, you can allow 100% residential use in a commercial zone with a higher percentage of affordable. So you could, so for example, if this was the law of the land and we could do a mixed use and we didn't want to do a mixed use and we wanted to do 100% residential, then you could say, yes, Mr. Andre, if you want to do 100% residential, where we only required 15%, you would have to do 30, 40, and you get density bonus or height bonus, maybe an FAR bonus, that kind of stuff. So this commission, I believe, through this application, give you enough information that you can use to modify the zoning regulations, should you choose. But what we would like to do, Alex and I, what we would like to do is redevelop our property. We do prefer the mixed use, but you give us the application, you approve it. The neighbor wanted the 2/3, then they change the goalposts again.
Yeah.
So guy like us, we are perfection. We have to have straight A's, otherwise it's not a passing grade. Well, we bought this property, we own it. We are going to redevelop it. We had one application that everybody loves. You loved it, you approve it. They set the standard higher for us. We met those standard. Now we're here. We would like this project approved according to the state law. So whatever happened. But we don't want it to be tied up with. It's actually interesting. I did ask Attorney Fallon about we wanted to do a mixed use in the 830G, and it made it clear to us legally we couldn't do it. I wouldn't mind doing any of that.
Conservative.
No, I
don't think as broadly as Commissioner.
well, I mean, it's not like we didn't give you that impression with Rain Street, so.
No, I know, exactly. Well, that's exactly what I said.
The
frustrating.
subsequent due diligence kind of, I think, shows that we were right in Rain, and that's, now we're starting to
We did
see.
a lot of things for the mixed use.
The frustrating, and this is my last point, is that, our legislators, that there's a super majority in Hartford, we know that. I mean, they could change the law tomorrow if they wanted to, and so it's clear that they don't, because they haven't, because Ruane, I think that's, it's gotta be 3 or 4 years ago, right?
Longer.
6, 7.
Okay, so though, and when, as the lawyers know, if a court decision comes down, appellate, and Supreme Court, and legislatures don't enact a law, like Kelo versus London comes to mind, then it's presumed that the legislature agrees with the court's decision. So it's a little frustrating. I wish the legislature would take a look at this and provide towns like Fairfield the opportunity to approve an 8-30G with commercial on the first floor, because we cannot be the only town that's encountering this issue. That's just a statement, I guess. So that's all I have. Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Randolph. I'm sorry, then Braun, Randolph Braun.
And Harrison's hand is up too.
So thank you.
Two sets of questions. So to add to Commissioner Ford's questions about maxing out the site. So this is 5/1 or 5/2 in your mind? Construction type. Is it a 5/1 or a 5/2?
You mean the actual construction?
The construction type. I mean, could you, so if you were to max this out, you could have.
We would.
I'm not saying you, I'm saying someone else could.
So right now it's a 5-story building. So we have a concrete podium with 4th floor with framing on top.
So it's right now it's 4/1.
4/1, correct.
So
you're saying if we could put one more floor on top?
I'm saying another developer could put 5/2, so make this thing 7 stories, right?
Sure.
Yeah, so back to Commissioner Ford's question about how big this could be.
It can get big, it can get bigger and taller.
With no setbacks. And parking, one per space, one per unit is defensible. It's reasonable. So how much bigger that would be, just one more floor without setbacks?
So, if you wanna humor me for a minute, if I wanted to get everybody upset, I will build a 0 lot line.
Yeah. That's what I'm asking. If it were 0 lot line.
31,000 square foot of parking garage.
Yeah.
And then let's keep going up.
Which would be what percentage bigger? 50%?
My math doesn't work that fast, but I don't think any of my neighbors would love that.
No, I'm not talking about the
No, that's
neighbors.
fair. Your point's taken. Even he said 80 units and that's based on,
That's being conservative.
I'm not, so that's.
But my point is that you could build something that was, because we've seen, I don't know if you've seen 4480 or Soundview.
Yes.
Buildings that look like that. If that design philosophy were to go on this site.
So let me just be honest about this. We are not that kind of architects.
No,
We're
that's-
not that kind of developer.
and
We have no
appreciate it.
interest in building that kind of building.
I'm not suggesting that.
Okay.
I'm just asking you if
Well,
you
let's-
were.
Let's leave it at that because
We could have.
I think enough implication has been made and he's not interested in that.
And then-
That's fair.
No. I'm just saying that we need to know if you were to take the same design philosophy as 4480 or Soundview, that this would look a lot different.
Correct.
It could look a lot different.
Yeah, let's leave it at that because he hasn't done it. I don't want to.
No. And
I
so
have no interest in doing that, but that's a fair point. Yes.
My other question related to retail on the ground floor. So you've got about 3,000 square feet possibly if you got rid of those 4 units.
Possibly, yes.
And so this is a tougher question. We've got 60 units, you'd lose 4 units, so you have, 56 units. So you'd lose, 4 or 5 parking spaces related to the residents. That would only give you 4 or 5 parking spaces for the retail, which is one of the issues that, stirred up the neighborhood. How would you address that?
Well, we haven't really, looked at that, so it would be hard to speculate about that right now. It's an issue that we'd have to consider. You, meaning the commission, would have to consider it as well.
No, that's fair.
Okay.
Commissioner Braun and then Harrison.
I just wanted to point out, I found the report from Mr. Santos from January 28th, I don't know, I don't know the date of the report, on the prior application dated January 28th, 2025. So there's 3 points in here that I would like addressed. One is item C on that report. Soil infiltration rate basis. Applicant has not provided any detail on the basis for the infiltration rate. The stormwater manual excludes the use of percolation testing to determine this rate. The only data shown is perk tests, and
Did you find our responses?
I don't know, I did not see that. but
They're-
they only
they are
did-
in that
You
record.
just said today, they only did perk tests, that's not allowed anymore, in the stormwater manual. The next one is insufficient retention capacity of the system. He said it's exceeded in a number of,
I can go through these.
well, I think I'd like these 3 addressed anyway.
Okay.
Because
They're in
I
the
don't want to just
record.
rely on a hearing we had 6 months ago.
Well, it's part of your
We're hearing
record.
Today.
It's part of, that's fine. I'll get it.
Do my research and go, we're looking at something.
It's part of your record now, and if you
But I'd
found.
like to have a presentation.
I will do that.
understand it.
I'll do that, but I just want to make clear for the other
That's my question.
commissioners.
So I'm asking my question. I'd like to have.
I will get you the answer. I just want to make sure so all the commissioners know that Mr. Santos's written comments were responded to, and that should be in your record as well. But Mr. DiVincenzo, can you?
Can I mention one last one? There's 3 that he said were not addressed that I'm concerned with.
Okay.
And the other one is overflow on the southern property line. I think that's Miss Lewis's house. I'm not sure. Southern seems like it's on Fairfield Place. The overflow to the level spreader, it seems like there will be exceedances in the gallery. So he's basically talking about the elevations, the galleries, the water's gonna go above and it's gonna have exceedances, and also the testing was not done. Those are the
Wayne?
issues.
Can you, are you familiar with those points that Mr. Santos made as part of the last hearing?
Yes, yes, and we did reply to all of them, and,
Could you reply to them again for purposes of this record? Those three
sure.
items Commissioner Braun mentions.
Sure. Again, the perk tests are, I think he maybe was not seeing the data that was on the sheets that were submitted. The data is there, was provided. And again, the standard perk test is accepted by the town of Fairfield. Again, the town engineer reviewed it. The Connecticut Stormwater Manual is not the town of Fairfield stormwater management policy. They are not the same thing. So that, I mean, that explains the perk comment. He seems to have a misunderstanding of what um, the HydroCAD modeling was showing. It simply was showing that at a 100-year storm, each of the sets of galleries filled up is their purpose. It collects, again, the runoff, they fill up, and again, one overflows to the other. The capacity is well more than enough to meet the town's stormwater policies. I believe we're providing about 2,800 cubic feet of retention capacity. We are reducing the 1 through 100-year storms. It varies, but between 20 to 40%. And again, that's compared to a vacant lot, a fresh meadow existing condition. So it's a large retention system that is being provided. It's not inadequate in any way. And it only overflows at the peak of the 100-year storm. Up to that, it doesn't overflow at all. And it only overflows at the third set, the lowest set, and it goes to I believe it's a 50-foot long level spreader, which diffuses the overflow. And again, that only happens at the peak of a 100-year storm. So, again, those were all addressed the last time and replied to, or reviewed by the town engineer, and he was satisfied with the answers.
I don't see anything in the material from the town engineer on this.
There's an email from Mr. Hurley to Mr. Wendt dated March 10, 2025 at 12:19 PM.
And that's on this application.
That's on the mixed use application, which, as was Mr. Santos's stuff that you're quoting from, all of which is now part of this record pursuant to.
So we have nothing on this application. So, okay, so
Let him finish, Kath.
I have one more question. So you were stating that our town does not follow the 2024 stormwater manual. We do not follow it because that does not allow percolation tests. It requires infiltrator tests to test the current existing soil conditions. Are you saying that our engineering department does not follow the 24 manual?
I don't believe it follows it in every regard, and that is one that has just not been the practice. And I would also point out that there really isn't going to be a significant difference if we were to do the borehole infiltration test. It's going to reveal a very similar result.
Is there a reason why we don't do the test that's now the norm, that's now the standard in our
Let's
state?
not get into what the
But
policy.
frankly, it's not the standard. I mean, I work in all throughout Fairfield County. It is really rarely used. Well, I wouldn't say rarely used, but infrequently used.
But we don't need, we don't need him to opine about what our town engineering does. Commissioner Harrison? Commissioner Harrison?
Oh, sorry. 5 years into this, still did the mute thing. In any case, I don't know who this might be best directed to. But I just remember early on during the concept review a few years ago, maybe 2024, maybe I guess it was. You definitely didn't want to do an 830G. You were very committed to your other project with this, which is commission approved. So tonight you're here for an 830G, which is within your right, and certainly no one wants to deny you the right for you to do what you want to do with your property. But the question is, are you able to come to the table with the neighbors? We all have neighbors. I have neighbors, you do, to kind of find something that is just best suited for this property. That's
We
something
have come to the table with the neighbors
okay.
for almost a year, and with all due respect, and they have every right to reach the conclusions that they reach and to pursue the legal remedies that they do. but we worked very hard. We had receptions and restaurants. We made significant changes to the mixed-use proposal. We did all of that. And then we sat back and we appreciated your approval, and we hoped there wouldn't be an appeal, but there was, and there is, and we will deal with it. And in the meantime, we have to protect the rights and the rights the town has to an 8-30G application. Because an 8-30G application, you know, is designed to provide housing, which the town does in fact need.
But your
So-
applicant said he didn't want to do an 830G. Do you remember that?
I'll finish.
Okay.
We said at the concept review, we didn't want to do an 8-30G. We said at the mixed use application that we did not want to do an 8-30G. I said tonight that we prefer and wished we didn't have to pursue the 8-30G, but the taking of the appeal, which is the right of anyone who wants to take it, forced our hands to come here. But as I also said, I'm not here to apologize for something bad. This application is in accordance with the purpose and intent of the statute, and it will provide, if this is the ultimately approved application, meaningful housing, both market and affordable. So I make no apologies on behalf of this
And
applicant.
Mr. Fallon, we don't disagree with that. We know that what 830G is the letter of the law. I think we all stated that about an hour and a half ago.
Right, and it's also a worthy piece of legislation when properly utilized. And there's no backtracking by this applicant. We've been consistent since the beginning at the pre-app that we would prefer to do the mixed use application, the one that you have now approved. And we are grateful for
Your
that.
point, your position is pretty clear on that. Commissioner Harris,
Understood. Thank you very much. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
anything else? Commissioner Braun.
I have a question about the affordable need in our town. What Attorney Fallon referenced was the 2022 Affordable Housing Plan,
Mhm.
which is already outdated because it uses information from 2020. So do you know how many units of affordable housing we need right now and why they have to be situated right here? The 20 that are being proposed.
Well, first of all, the study was a 2022-2027 affordable housing plan. And I can read, if you would like, the conclusions that were reached as part of that study in terms of the ongoing need for affordable housing. I cannot give you a number of units that you currently have or where you stand. I defer to Mr. Barnhart on that. I would say to you that we do need affordable housing units in this part of town, and that its location on a main corridor of the Post Road, convenient to the train station, public transportation, and other aspects of convenience, make it an ideal location for an affordable housing development.
The data cited though is from 2020. They say we only have 608 units. And obviously we have more than that now.
I'm only giving you, if you want me to read this to you, but I won't
don't
in
have to read it to
consideration of
you.
the other commissioners.
That's fine. I don't think
You
we,
can read what your own Affordable Housing Committee says in a document entitled Fairfield 2022-2027 Affordable Housing Plan. And this is 2025.
that's not there. Was there anything, did you have traffic engineer?
We do.
Okay, why don't we get to that and then is that probably it after that?
So with me, with us tonight is Mr. David Sullivan from SLR International Corporation. He prepared the traffic study that was submitted as part of this application, the 8-30G application, dated November 22, 2024. He also prepared the application, or excuse me, the traffic report that was submitted to you as part of the mixed use application. But he's going to review for you now his findings based upon his traffic analysis for the 8-30G application. Sullivan.
Thank you, thank you. Good evening, everyone. And again, my name is David Sullivan with SLR Consulting. I manage the Transportation Planning Group. The scope of work was very similar to our prior work on this site. We looked at the existing conditions, did a series of traffic counts, looked at the other characteristics of the area. Our study area was between North and South Pine Creek Road, Lindbergh Street, Fairfield Place and Sasko Hill Road. We conducted traffic counts for morning peak hour, afternoon peak hour, and Saturday midday peak hour. Next, we reviewed the site from a couple of aspects. We looked at the access. It hasn't been discussed much tonight, if at all, but vehicles will enter the site from Lindbergh Street and exit the site onto Fairfield Place with a left turn restriction. So all vehicles exiting the site will take a right turn. The number of trips that these 60 multifamily homes will generate was based on the Institute of Transportation Engineers. And we estimate in the morning, there would be about 20 trips. That's in and out combined. In the afternoon peak hour, about 30 trips. And on Saturday during the midday peak hour, again, about 20 trips. We also looked at the sightlines on Lindbergh Street. The sightlines we're concerned with are vehicles slowing to take a right or a left turn in, and vehicles behind them being able to see them. That's called stopping sight distance. There's certain criteria based on distance and speed, and those criteria were met. So the stopping sight distances are met on Lindbergh. On Fairfield Place, the key that we're looking at is the intersection sight distance. That's as you're exiting a driveway, you want to be able to see cars approaching. In this case, for taking a right turn, you need to see a certain distance to your left. For the speed limit out there, the requirement is 280 feet, and we can see 300 feet or so in that direction. Next, we did the analysis of the site traffic and what impact it has on the levels of service, the letter grades from A through F. And we analyzed background conditions, which is what the traffic conditions would be at our study intersections should there not be any development on this site. And then we add the development site traffic, analyze it again, and determine what those levels of service are. We ran those through our model and found that there would be no change to any of the levels of service for any approach at any intersection in our study area. So with that said, our conclusion is that the site will not impact traffic or create any safety concerns in the vicinity. Our recommendations are that where the sightlines are important, which is at both driveways, that any low hanging branches or any new plantings not obstruct sightlines. And that the areas around the driveways and the corners have a certain daylighting effect by prohibiting parking right up to the intersections. We're recommending 15 feet in either direction at the driveways. And lastly, that the internal signage be reviewed to make sure that the traffic flow on site, since there is one-way traffic flow, is appropriate and can regulate that appropriately. That's my summary.
Mr. Sullivan, if I may ask you, as I indicated before, you also prepared the traffic analysis with regard to the mixed-use proposal, correct?
Yes, we did.
And as you know, and as the commission knows, ultimately, we eliminated from consideration the restaurant use that had originally been proposed as part of the mixed-use application, correct?
Yes.
And could you just briefly, with the understanding of the elimination of the restaurant in particular, but could you give a brief overview to the commission with regard to traffic impacts, volume and such between the recently approved mixed-use development, the 40 units and the commercial space absent the restaurant, and the 60-unit residential proposal that's here, the comparison of traffic impacts between those two?
So the difference is really in the volume of traffic that would be generated. So to give you an idea, and this is if we exclude the restaurant portion, I'm looking back at our old traffic study. If we exclude the restaurant portion, the total vehicular trips that would be generated, we estimated at 120 during the morning peak hour, 95 during the afternoon peak hour, and 125. When we take the restaurant out, the 95 in the afternoon becomes 65. And when we take the 40 restaurant trips out on Saturday, that becomes 85. So comparatively speaking, going across AM, PM Saturday, we would have 120, 95, and 125.
Mr. Sullivan,
Yes,
when you take out the restaurant, are you putting back in something of commercial? Because we may have, by not approving in the regulation that stops the restaurant, there's still a corresponding commercial. So are you just taking out the restaurant and not putting something in? Or are you taking out the restaurant, but then also considering that some commercial can go there?
I am not considering the additional traffic that would be added back in for the larger commercial. So this would be a more conservative assumption.
All right. And
When
how does-
comparing it to the housing. Now, there is some pass by and shared trips, pass by and shared trips that the restaurant would contribute to. So that would, that net reduction would also come out. So I'm trying to give you a ballpark that they're somewhere around, let's say, 65 to 100 or so trips that during the peak hours from the original study. And with the 60 units of multifamily housing, were about a third of that were 20 to 30 trips during the peak hour. So it's a 3 times the traffic with the in larger terms, 3 times the traffic for the mixed use development.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Commissioner Braun.
The crash data that you have shows 66, it's this, you did not get new data for this application versus the prior one, right? It shows 66 crashes in the 3 years ending February a year ago.
Correct.
Did you try to get information that's more updated, like that would include through the rest of 2024 at least?
We did not for that because that report was done last fall. Let me just confirm. Bear with me 1 second. I'll just confirm that we use the same data. Yes, we use the same data. Can it be updated? Certainly. If the hearing is going to be continued, I'd be happy to provide an updated table.
And this is called a low-rise building, not a high-rise. This is 6 stories, right? 60 feet and change tall. What do you call a high-rise in our town? It seems like a high-rise.
That's.
High rise are typically 10 stories or so. There's definitions provided. Low rise, I think, are between 3 and 5, and then they have mid rise. I don't have the specific definitions.
So the trip generation, calling this, I guess, low rise, it's just not it's only generating 20 trips for the 75 parking spaces in the morning.
Yes, and all of the multifamily rates for the mid-rise, low-rise, high-rise, they're all very similar. So these numbers would not change much, much at all.
And in the prior application, the building we call the wedding cake building, that had a degradation of the service level at that intersection for people exiting the private drive, that big building across from Lindbergh.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a degradation here. Is that based on fewer trips being generated for this project? Is that one?
Yes. Yep, absolutely.
And the trip generation for this seems to be sort of between a low rise and a mid rise. How many more trips would there be if this was considered mid rise at 6 stories?
I don't have all the statistics at my fingertips, but it would be very similar. So 20 might be 25 or 15. That's the magnitude we're talking about with these rates. And I believe low rise is more conservative, for example, than high rise would be. Um,
And-
again, we could provide, and we round all these numbers as well. So
When you look at the trip generation, that's based on the ITE, right?
correct.
Which is a manual that does not have site-specific or town-specific or even region-specific data. It's just random statistics nationwide that people submit to the ITE. Is that how they do it?
Well, I would agree with everything except random. They're very specific to the type of housing and the counts are that they do it. These are very specific and statistically, it's very um, consistent in this region. We've done follow-up studies on many of the categories in ITE and found particularly on these um, more typical uses and the high number of data points, it's very reliable data.
Because this is not that close to the train station. I would imagine people leaving, whether they're going to work or going to the train station, are probably going to take their car. It seems to me like 20 trips for 75 parking spaces is low. So this, but it's the peak.
Again, this is something that, you know, I've get, not questioned on, but it's something that I explain often. That's in 1 hour. So, you know, there are trips that leave the hour before and the hour after, but this is out of the morning peak period, this is the highest 1 hour. So for example, if you're working locally and you're driving to work and you start at 8, you're leaving at one time. If you're taking a train to go to Stanford or Manhattan, you're leaving at another time. If you're taking a social trip or a shopping trip, you're leaving at a different time. So everybody's not, you know, all 60 units are not a bunch of people that are all sitting there waiting for the bell to ring so that they could run to the train station. So,
And what is the hour that's selected for this, for the peak hour?
I believe it was 8 to 9. I could confirm that if you bear with me. It was 8 AM to 9 AM
Thank
and
you.
4 PM to 5 PM in the afternoon and 11:15 to 12:15 on Saturday.
Thank you.
Commissioner Porcello.
Mr. Sullivan, you indicated, I think the report on the 830G application, the trip generation includes a 15% TOD credit per Commissioner Braun's comments.
No, for the mixed use, some of the commercial, we used a reduction of shared trips and pass-by trips. For this residential, we did not take any reductions for TOD, for pass-by, of course, and for shared trips because there's nothing to share with.
I'm reading a footnote that says a 15% TOD credit, but I guess the real point is if those numbers, the 20 AM peak hour and the 30 PM peak hour do include that, if we wanted to be conservative, we're talking an additional a few trips, add a few trips to the peak hour in the morning and afternoon.
I see. Um, yes, we did take it. I apologize. I see the footnote now. Yes, so it would add 2 or 3 trips to the 20 and, you know, probably 4 trips to the 30 trips on the PM peak. If there were no TOD or no trips of that nature.
Commissioner Randolph.
Mr. Sullivan, your LOS table 3 capacity analysis summary.
Mhm.
What's the lowest grade on there? It looks like it's a D as in David.
There is on the second page, at the Pine Creek Road signal, there is an E for the northbound left turn.
And what letter would we need to get in order to just to inform me to have a significant safety issue? Because LOS is really just a convenience, is it not? Does it really
Correct.
address safety?
No, it's not a direct indicator of safety. It can indicate safety if there's residual issues that are created by the poor operations. For example, if you were on at a traffic light on an off ramp, this is the most common example, and there's an increase or a reduction in the level of service coming off that on ramp. And because of that level of service, the backup gets longer, and now the back of that backup is on the expressway main line. It becomes a safety issue associated with the operational condition. So there are circumstances where they could be related, but most times it's just a convenience.
So do any of those circumstances that pose a safety risk, potentially pose a safety risk? And I think your description of an on-ramp is a good one because we can visualize, somebody getting rear-ended because there's a queue. Is there any, in your intersections, does because this LOS is easy to understand, it's what we often focus on. Is there any intersection here that poses a safety risk in your professional opinion?
No, not at all.
Does it come close?
No, even the levels of service E are very acceptable during peak hours. As a matter of fact, if you had a bunch of signals that were all level of service A, you probably don't need the signals at all those places.
And then back to, we talk about ITE all the time. Is there a different standard besides ITE that's used?
Only real world data would be the only other source. So if we have a use that doesn't fit a category that has significant amount of data points, we'll go and do research and do our own data collection of similar uses if they exist.
So if there's like a building type that wasn't in the tables, you would go do a traffic count for that building type? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and sometimes those don't even exist. For example, when all the cannabis dispensaries had started, it was very difficult because there wasn't a whole lot of data. So we had to I don't want to say manufacture. We had to determine what uses were similar and adjust them based on the differences. So we got really down in the weeds with a lot of those operations. Now there's a lot of data on those type of sites, but 5, 6, 7 years ago, there were not.
I got your pun there, down in the weeds. So, so just back to the building type, this is low rise building type. Is the ITE data, is there a good pool of information for ITE for this building type? Because I see these kind of buildings a lot of places, not as many in Fairfield, but there is a very common building type. Is your confidence high, medium, low that the TIS forecast traffic volumes are accurate for this? Or would it require like a separate study, like a cannabis location?
Yeah, no, the data is fine here. And as I pointed out, the difference between the different categories is not significant. You're looking at differences of 5 or 10% max in the rates. And I think low rise is one of the higher generating of the three categories.
Yeah, it intuitively makes sense. A low rise building would have a higher volume, a higher rise logic.
I would wrap it up if we can. Swing it to public comment.
I'm done.
I have a question.
Mr. Harrison, go ahead.
Thank you. Just for Mr. Sullivan, I'm not sure if I saw this in your notes. Was there a death reported in this area by a car fatality?
There, there was one that was, in a parking lot across the street. It was not related to the roadway.
What was the cause of that issue?
I don't recall exactly, because, we're going from anecdotal data because there wasn't a formal report that we can get our hands on. But, I believe someone got run over in a parking lot.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Braun.
Just a follow-up on the stormwater issue. Is the stormwater gentleman still here?
Wayne, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
There was an email from Mr. Hurley to the commission March 10th. This is obviously on the prior application. He had some follow-up questions, and can you address them? He said, one of the questions has to do with doing test pits, percolation or deep test pits. He said hydrological soil group D and applicant deep tests revealing fine sand do not correspond to the very quick percolation rates. Recommend additional deep test and perk test along Lindbergh Street near proposed entrance. Overall testing on site is fairly consistent, but applicant should confirm soil conditions where galleries will be installed. That's one comment.
You want to comment on that, Wayne, before, just so we don't lose track?
Yeah, yeah, I did see a memo from the town engineer. I don't know if that's it or not, but he did say it was, he didn't recommend anything, but he did say it was curious that it was a type D soil, but it perked well. And I did take a look at, just to make sure we weren't looking at, that the lot was somehow isolated or different from everything around. And on both sides of the post road, up and down that, it is type D soil. That is what the USGS site shows. I'm confident that that is a type D soil in that area. And again, those percolation tests were observed by a competent engineering associate, and I have no reason to doubt them. And again, a very conservative factor of safety was applied to them. So, again, it is unusual that a type. Well, I wouldn't say unusual, but it is. You wouldn't expect the type D soil to necessarily perk that well, but this did.
So additional deep tests were not done after the March 10th email from Mr. Hurley.
No.
Okay. The next comment he said is the engineering requirement is for no net increase in runoff or volume for a 100-year storm, not to detain the entire site. The applicant's engineer statement is correct that the computer warnings are typical, common, not true errors, but these messages should be confirmed that there are no issues, no groundwater issues per the deep test. So was that confirmed that the error messages in your program that was used are not errors? Have you confirmed that there's no problems?
Yes, we've reviewed it. There is no problem with it. They are typical errors that you get in the HydroCAD program. Everything was double checked. There is no error in it.
Then he talks about the level lip spreader, which basically spreads water out that overflows the system onto the area beyond the level lip spreader. He said it should be shifted to the east. Have they evaluated using deeper galleries or deeper gravel base to reduce the need for overflow structures? Applicants should install barrier where drainage structures are located within 10 feet of private property lines. That's the last question that I have that Mr. Hurley had on March 10th.
Yes, we could certainly shift the level spreader over, and I did look at possibly doing something a little different with the last set of galleries. I believe that last set of galleries currently is 2 rows of 80 feet long. If we added a third row, and actually if we had 3 rows of 72 feet, it would eliminate the overflow completely. So if we added one more row, and again, it only overflows during a 100-year storm, during the peak of a 100-year storm. But if we added one more row, which we could, there's room for it, it would not overflow at all.
Is there some reason why Mr. Hurley's suggestions were not done after March tenth. Is that because this application was already filed by then or something,
We
or?
haven't built it yet.
Put in the plan, you know, say that you're gonna do it.
I think it was filed before and, I mean,
Oh, this was filed before though.
yeah, and to the extent that anything needs to be done, the engineer will make those demands or recommendations or whatever, and it'll be adjusted.
Okay.
Obviously, final plans are gonna have to be reviewed by the engineering department.
I think,
We can show.
I think we have to approve what's, we feel is appropriate, not wait for engineering to fix it later.
Well, we could discuss
That's our
that
job.
because
That's
I
our
think, I'm not being feisty tonight, but I think
I'm not either.
you take a more detailed standpoint in terms of engineering
Well,
detail.
engineering does things in advance of a building permit, but we have a job to do too,
I
which is not to approve something that doesn't work, that might not work.
But I think you can rely on your engineering department to ensure
They
that
didn't do what the engineering department said to do.
that's not
That's not what just.
They
That's not
just
what-
said they didn't do the tests they
I
required.
don't want to argue with you, Commissioner.
I mean, yeah, I think that's.
We don't get thorough things from the engineering department, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, I don't know how, accurate that truly is, but we don't have to get into it. All right,
Well, we didn't get anything on this application, for example. We got something from the last application.
was there not something in the record about with the engineer?
The stormwater design is not different.
Well, let's reach out to the engineer anyways, especially now that we have previous application had gone through and those comments going back and forth in that respect. Let's reach out to him again.
But replying to the comments is a condition of approval.
We could, yeah, either a condition of, I don't think it needs to be that. I mean, at some point, the
No, no, no,
engineering,
but I'm saying, in order to get a building permit, they need to comply with the comments.
yes, I mean, yes.
That's
So,
what I
all
was
right.
trying to do.
Well, I mean, this is a conceptual discussion that Commissioner Randolph and I have had. I feel we have a job to do that's separate from what engineering's job is to do on a building permit application. That's why we're here.
Well, I understand that, but I guess that's the point is,
Why are we here
It
if
should
we're
be kept
just
separate.
duplicate with the
I
engineering?
guess that's the point is it should be kept separate. I mean, if there's an engineering detail like that, that can be worked out with engineering, that should be it. I'm not sure that it really is in our purview either, but
If the testing wasn't done, how do we
I
know?
think
it's
we're
gonna
done.
work?
Anything further?
I'll have some summary comments, but I know you're anxious to get to the public, so I thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna close the initial presentation portion of this application, open public comments. If any member of the public, we'll start with in person, wish to be heard in this application, and just, Attorney Green, I assume you have comments, right? Start with that. Thomas.
Chairman, good evening. Joel Green. I represent a number of property owners in the area as I did on the previous application. It's my pleasure to appear before you on their behalf again this evening. We have two consultants, either of whom could be with us tonight. I understand that it's going to be held open to the 20th. Is that correct?
You're telling me now that you don't have your people available, then I guess that's, I mean,
We will not be long, but
I know, but every time, yeah,
When was this noticed?
I mean, even when it was noticed, they're not available today, so.
when I was here last week, it was stated that this would be conducted on the 13th and the 20th. But I think there's plenty of members of the public who wish to speak anyways.
We do have a statutory deadline for this application of May 24th. So
What is
the
that?
decision has to be made by that date. So just for scheduling purposes, if we need to add an additional meeting, special meeting, we may need to do that.
So we have to have a decision in by the 24th. 24th is a Saturday, meaning that this decision needs to be made by the 20th. Do we have any extensions?
They've already
Made them
granted
all.
a 65-day extension.
So the record is clear, and without disrespect to my colleague, my concern here, from the applicant's standpoint, as a matter of due process, is this hearing is under deadline, despite the extensions I've given. Everybody knew that this hearing was going to be continued to tonight with an open date on the 20th. I'm disappointed that not only one, but neither of Mr. Green's experts can be here tonight, which leaves the applicant in the position that he can come rolling in here on the 20th with consultants to testify. And it's an inconvenience, it's a due process inconvenience to me. It's a real inconvenience to you because we may end up having to meet on Thursday night. Because I don't know what he's gonna say. I don't even know who he's gonna bring. And I received no courtesy on this.
Well, let me ask this, because regardless of what we thought was the 13th or 20th, I just didn't have in my mind now or even then, I mean, statutory deadline of the 24th. So a decision, and even if he wanted to, he can't, as far as.
I've given the maximum extension I can.
I mean, I don't think there's anything, even if you wanted to do, that you could do.
If I had another extension to give, I'd give it, both as a courtesy and to protect myself from this kind of nonsense.
We have
Somebody coming in on the 20th.
So I gotta make a decision by the 24th. I'll go to the other public comments because unless you have other comments, I mean, if you have any comments other than your experts, I'd say let's go through that as well. But my thought is to have reports by your experts by the 16th, by the Friday. At least then I know on the 20th that I can at least finish up rebuttal. And
That's
what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to prepare for rebuttal. And then, right after, what's on, normally we do executive old business and then hearing. That's not something we can be able to do unless what do we look like on the 20th? I don't wanna waste time with this, but.
So on the 20th, we can push, we had scheduled the Kings Highway decision for the drive-through with the 2 takeouts.
What's on public hearing for that day besides this one?
Just one application for a coastal site plan and a special permit for a rooftop deck.
Those will go quickly.
Yes.
So what we could do is our regular old business, what we currently have on for public hearings, and then finish this, and then right after the public hearing, make a decision.
Yes.
I mean, we're not we don't have so much jam packed with our hearings that night where that's a problem. Where I would have to take this public hearing out of order, I guess is my point.
We can discuss it offline, and then if you want to bump something, we can do that.
So why don't we do that? Because.
All right, that's fine.
And I don't know if we're gonna we'll figure out the procedure about making a vote on that or close public hearing and go to a vote. I don't know how that works off the top of my head. But I think that's the way we have to do it.
Yeah, and look, I appreciate the accommodation and I'm reminded of a judge in the court who always says, don't push against an open door. I appreciate the fact that the commission is granting that accommodation. I think that the commission has to bear in mind also that this expedited process, and I know this commission has been working so hard and every week you're meeting, but it puts a great burden on the public as well to reload for these hearings and for consultants at the moment.
I hear you. I mean, but it's not something I can.
I
Yeah,
understand.
and I don't think pretend that you're attacking us by any stretch.
No,
I know you're not. You're stating an obvious fact that it affects not just this commission, but the public and the applicants. So I mean, that strikes me as the course of least resistance.
Satisfied as
And I also understand, and just so that we have the commission, some members of the commission have asked for some information, as I understand it. Commissioner Braun asked, I think, for some information on engineering. I don't know.
I don't know what commissioner, but
Well, I thought she went through kind of the things already, so everything.
Wait, what am I being said that I said?
I had suggested that you would ask for some information on the
Yes,
stormwater.
I would like to have the answers to those questions and,
I think we answered those questions. And if other members of the commission disagree, please tell me, but I can have Mr. Devanzo answer them again. But I don't know what more I can do.
That's fine.
And your position is you would like to.
Hold on, let's not go back and forth.
I'm not gonna revise.
No.
the presentation seemed to be, look at the presentation from 6 months ago. You know, like, I'd like to have something presented.
Commissioner Braun, to be fair, you were bringing up the stuff that happened 6 months ago too.
Well,
So
it
I
should be
mean,
part of this hearing.
it is part of this hearing. The record is not part.
Change it.
Now let's go back to this. Friday, you'll have your experts in.
Yes,
At the end of the day,
yes.
well, yeah, not just to us, send it to him as Attorney Fallon as well.
Sure.
That should give everybody plenty of time to respond.
That's fine.
It's up to you as to whether you want to respond in writing or in rebuttal.
That's fine.
I would think if you're so inclined to do it in writing, getting it to us beforehand on, be frank, Monday evening would be the way to go. But I leave that completely to you because you have every right to come here and talk to us.
I don't know what I'm gonna see, so.
Well, exactly.
That's fine.
Because anything, if you gave us to us something Friday, 4 o'clock on a Tuesday, you're gonna be talking about it anyway. So at that point, might as well just.
The only reason I'm equivocating a little bit is, I can't speak. I assume it's gonna be engineering material. I assume it's gonna be traffic. I don't even know that at this point.
I got it.
I don't know whether.
No, I got it, but I think this,
Mr. Sullivan has a daughter graduating or something.
that's a
so
fair
it's
point.
Problem.
But I think,
I'll make it work.
thank you. Do you have anything aside from your experts that you want to talk about?
Not at this moment, no.
Well, you're not gonna, this is public comments going tonight.
Understood.
And if I'm done with public comments, I'm gonna finish up public comment, subject really just to your experts. So if you have anything else besides your experts, that's fine.
I'm gonna defer to the public for the moment.
Alright. At the moment, you said, okay. Gotta listen a little harder sometimes. Okay, so let's go to the public and see where we go with this. But I'm telling, and just for everybody's sake, start coming up, we'll do one at a time. For the public's knowledge and for this commission, we have a statutory deadline of the 24th, which is Saturday. Meaning if we don't make a decision by then, it is statutorily approved. We need to go as long as we have to tonight, potentially. And I don't know, we'll see where we are close to 10 o'clock, if we stay later or if, circumstances come on up, sir. I don't think 2 meetings in a week is fair to us or anybody, but let's see where we are at 10 o'clock. So what I would ask for the public is, particularly because this is somewhat of a second application that's very similar in a lot of ways. If you can, like you have in the past, state your name, your address. I'm going to be trying my best to keep everybody to 3 minutes. The entire record from last meeting has been incorporated into this, including the public comments and the objections to that. So again, that highlights kind of the need to be as concise as we can. That would be helpful. Sir, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Donald Hyman. I live at 61 Northfield Road in Fairfield. That's near the intersection of Fairfield Place. And I've lived there for 41 years with my wife, Wendy. Can't be here this evening.
Speak up.
Do you have the microphone on you?
I have no microphone.
No, isn't there a speaker, mic?
We have a microphone.
Can't hear you.
And sir, why don't you come up too? If anybody's having trouble hearing, please come up because we don't have a microphone right now. I'm not sure if we can get one right this second, but
Is it being recorded though?
it is
Yeah,
being
It's being
recorded.
recorded.
The recording can hear you.
Oh, okay.
I don't know where the microphone with
If
those.
everybody's having trouble, they can.
I'll try to speak louder.
It'll be
Plenty of
awesome.
seats up front, so.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm not normally noted soft-spoken, but
Don't worry about it.
I'll repeat what I said before. My name is Donald Hyman. I live at 61 Northfield Road in Fairfield, near the intersection with Fairfield Place. My wife Wendy and I have lived there for 41 years. I'm here tonight. I have no engineering background. I have no legal background. I'm here as a parent and a member of the community. I'm here also as a grandparent. We raised our children here in Fairfield. I was going to send you 4 pictures of our granddaughters, but would be way over the top and I won't do that. But our kids, our grandkids are just as cute as all the other kids that live in our neighborhood. They're just as cute as any of the kids that might possibly live in a building such as it being considered tonight. It's never clear to me really if this building would provide for children to live with adults, but if there are, they would be concerned about the same things I'm going to be speaking about. I'm also sensitive to the instruction we got, Attorney Fallon, regarding the need for quantifiable probability of specific harm versus mere concern. I'm afraid I'm gonna speak in the mere concern department, because that's all I can do, is speak in the mere concern department. I'm concerned about the children in the area. I'm concerned about my grandchildren when they come to visit. I'm concerned about the people that live in the neighborhoods of off Fairfield Place and Lindbergh Street. As you know, these are very narrow, busy, post road connected streets that might soon abut a planned 60-unit apartment building. Fairfield Place, as you know, is so narrow that it can't accommodate a full sidewalk. The Sunshine Development application that's now before you for consideration includes, I believe, space for 60 units. With our kids used to ride their bikes in on these streets. They went to school on school buses on these streets. They walked to visit friends and passenger vehicles. I've heard the same things you've heard tonight in terms of studies. I also remember hearing in the earlier round studies from other engineers that contradicted some of that information and spoke about the higher level of traffic and risk to people walking on Fairfield Place and Lindbergh Place. And I'd ask you to consider that. How can it be that adding a building with this many units, with this, and with the expected overflow of parking beyond what the building will contain on its property, will be safe for school buses, for kids, for emergency vehicles, walkers and cyclists? These are the things that I'm concerned about, and others are too. Fairfield thrives because of its families, neighbors, and care for community. As grandparents who raised our kids here and whose grandchildren visit us regularly, we urge you to approach the proposed 830G development at 2179 and 2199 Post Road and 29 Fairfield Place with a strong safety consideration. I know there's been other evidence that was introduced at an earlier hearing on the non-830G application. And I've just heard that other experts will be coming back. I would ask you strongly to consider that. There are so many kids in this neighborhood. These streets are so narrow. And
If you can just finish up, please.
that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A member of the public in person, come on up, please. Again, I'm going to be trying to keep a 3-minute timeline just to keep things moving. Good evening.
Good evening. Susan C., 186 Fairfield Place. I had something that I wrote, but I'm kind of gonna go off that. I have a question about what Commissioner Braun was talking about with the engineering report for the overflow of the water. There seems to be a lot of questions about this, and I think the point is, if you're gonna approve something without that being approved, like, how do you do that? How do you approve a development if the plan for the sewage and the water overflow is not in place yet? And it hasn't fully been approved and there are questions around it? How does that work?
This isn't going to be a kind of a back and forth, so to speak. This is your time to speak on it. There are questions you can certainly ask of the applicant that he can answer in rebuttal. But this is not something we're going to get
Okay,
into.
so I guess that's,
conversation on.
that's a major concern. I guess I don't understand how it works. Like, if you're going to approve something, this development, yet this underneath portion may or may not work, or is what the engineer wants from the developer, how does it get approved without that being fixed? So that's a question. Again, the whole safety thing, I don't believe that traffic study, like, I was coming out of Fairfield Place today, there were cars parked here on the post road, there were cars parked there. I had to literally pull out into the middle of the road to try to take a left. Like, it's insane every day. And I'm wondering if you all have actually driven around those streets at different times during the day, at night, when it's busy. Do you see what's going on there now? Like, it's already crazy. And so we're gonna add all these other cars where they can't park in that development because there's only 60 spots.
Everyone has two cars. Where are all the other cars going? They're going on our streets. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Like, I don't get it. I just don't get it. So I'm not gonna go on and on. I think you've heard this over and over again, but it's a huge, huge safety concern, and it's going to ruin our neighborhoods. And I really implore you to consider scaling it back. We're not against the development. We're not against 830G. We're against something that's too big for that lot. That's the bottom line. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, are we asking them to submit their letters into the record? I don't know if they've
It's
already.
up to them.
Okay.
Oh, I don't think we've done any letters. Nelson Clark, I'm at 113 Fairfield Place. I didn't prepare anything, but I've been a resident in this neighborhood for 25 years. The impression is that this is being fast tracked. I don't know if you guys, my time's going, I guess. It just seems like it's be just fast tracked. And there's not a lot of discussion going on with a new application, things that should have been done with the engineering part. The traffic data is outdated. Half of it, if not 2/3 of it, is during COVID, when there was nobody on the road. The engineer is saying that they hired is saying that a 1 in a 100-year storm might stress it, the stormwater system. Sandy was what? 1 in 100 year. And that was what, how many years ago? 10 years ago? Things happen. COVID was 1 in a 100-year occurrence. None of us in this room would have imagined COVID. I had no idea. It was like, what? What is this? We're shutting down the country? It was like, we're doing, all of a sudden I'm getting a call from my sister. We were like in shutdown. It's like, what the hell shutdown? Have you guys ever lived through COVID? Something like that. We're never gonna live through that again, hopefully. Another thing is that it seems, again, appearances are that 1030Js, mixed commercial, every block has an application on, it seems. It's just, you look in the paper, next door, whatever it is, it's being passed, Circle Diner, Post Road, Umpqua, whatever. It's like, when does it stop? It's all a big confluence of building. It's not just one, here. You're not looking at it in the entirety. You're looking at a spot zoning. You're still, this building's fine, this building is fine, but all of a sudden you got these buildings. And it just doesn't make sense. Everyone's complaining. Everyone, you may not be seeing it, but everyone's complaining. There are allegations going back and forth about why is it a 5-2 vote almost every single time? It's, I mean, people are scratching their heads. Giving you fair warning, it's gonna explode. The building is exploding. The development is exploding. This doesn't make sense.
Thank you. Sir. Good evening.
Hi. My name is Jim Rollmeyer. I live out on Lindbergh Court. I've been there for 24 years. During that time, I've seen young families move in, children raised, they move out, new families come in. We have on that street toddlers to teenagers to retirees like myself. It's a neighborhood of families. If you drive down that street, you're going to see basketball hoops in the driveways. You're going to see volleyballs in the front yards. Kids playing in the streets. This is a neighborhood that is an active family neighborhood. It's not a high traffic area by any means. I'm going to speak about the safety issue and the parking issue that causes a safety issue. But I'm not going to say it's a mere concern. I think 830G applications can be denied with quantifiable and concrete evidence of a safety factor. The proposal for 75 parking places for the 60 units is completely inadequate. And it's going to cause a lot of parking on the streets. The streets are narrow. If you have parking on both sides of the street, 2 cars cannot pass. A large truck cannot pass. Snowplow cannot pass. A school bus is going to have a tough time as well. So what you've got is a situation where you've got cars going very slow because they can't pass between cars on both sides of the streets. Their traffic consultant said, because of the line of sight issues, they need 25 feet of space between the post road and the entrance or the exit. They also need 15 feet from either sides of the entrance or the exit, which means, and that's because when a car is parked there, you can't see it coming. That's going to happen when cars parked up and down the street. Every resident's got the same issue. If cars are parked near your driveway, you can't see coming out. You can't creep into it because the street's too narrow. The narrowness of the street is a concrete, quantifiable element. The number of cars that's going to be parked on that street, quantifiable, concrete element. It's not a mere concern. Now, no one's been killed on that street in the time I've been there, as near as I can tell. But you can't say, well, I'm concerned it might happen. If it happens next year or 5 years from now, you can't say, oops, I guess we were wrong. This is quantified. It's a hard fact issue that with more parking, you're going to have more traffic. You're going to have more dangerous traffic. The first thing you learn when you're taking driving lessons, if you're driving down a residential street and there's a parked car, you got to watch out for a kid running out. There are no sidewalks. Concrete fact, there are no sidewalks. Anyone on those streets has to walk in the street. You got a dog, you're in the street. Got a baby in a carriage, you're in the street. Kids playing baseball on their tricycles, you see that every day. They have to be in the street. There are no sidewalks. You have a hard safety factor that's going to be aggrieved with this development. And I think that is not a mere concern. It's a hard fact. So I hope you'll take that into consideration because I think that is a basis for denying this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, a video has been submitted showing this evidence. And I believe it will be shown tonight as well.
I think that was the same video we saw last time.
Yes.
Good evening.
Here I am again. My name, as you know, is Mary Halloran. I live on Fairfield, in Fairfield for 32 years on Lindbergh Court. First thing I want to say is something that I've said before, but my neighbors and I are not opposed to the development of a sunshine property. It's been underutilized for a long time. We don't like to see something there that is attractive and to scale, and that would not be disruptive to our beautiful existing neighborhood. Something that is safe and that does not block and crowd our streets. Something that will not overtax our sewers. We are opposed to scale. It's unsafe, and as it is in this proposal. It calls for 60 residential units with only 25 parking spaces, well under the current zoning requirements. We all know there's not enough parking. Where are those cars going to go? They're going to be parked up and down the neighborhood streets and beyond. Existing businesses such as Britannia and Fairfield Automotive will lose their current street parking. We hear a lot about Fairfield should be walkable and bikeable. What you may do to our street is not going to make it walkable and bikeable. There are cars needed. There are no sidewalks. As my husband Jim just said, people will be walking in the street all the time and in between cars. It's going to make our streets less safe, less walkable, and less accessible. as you will see in the video, which is available.
I'm not sure we're gonna watch the whole video tonight. I mean, I remember we watched it last time. I
Will you
remember,
watch it again? You should watch it again?
Posted?
yeah, it's posted again.
Yes, I posted it again.
I did see that.
It's on the course.
I did see.
All right, so then I just want to talk about some of the things you will see in the video. Tight streets, hard access for ambulances, snowplows, fire equipment, lack of visibility, children play in that street, difficulty of people getting in and out of their driveways because of parked cars behind their driveways, pedestrian issues, snowplow issues. When it snows, the snowplow puts the snow in the curb, makes the street even more narrow. There's going to be also issues around the height of the buildings related to my neighbors' homes. Some of their homes will be ruined, literally ruined. And I hope that you would try to do something to make that not happen. So again, we are not anti-development. We just want it to be to scale. And I hope you will hear this. And you have a duty to ensure the safety of our neighbors, our residents. And I think that this construction does not make our neighborhood more safe. It makes it unsafe and it makes it unlivable, really. So I urge you to vote against this proposal for those reasons.
Thank you. This is a video, right?
Hi,
Good evening.
my name's Heather Frank and I live on Lindbergh Street. So TPZ commissioners, with all due respect, I was stunned by the approval of Sunshine Group's original application, and now we're facing an even larger, taller proposal in the same plot. However, this isn't Sunshine Group's fault or anyone's fault per se, but the onus is upon because anyone could submit an application for anything, but the onus is upon you to decide how our town is going to go into the future and how it's going to look and how the safety of our residents are going to be. So you've already read and reviewed the many letters submitted by our neighbors opposing the initial project. Those letters outlined in detail how we feel this development threatens the safety and character of our Lindbergh, Fairfield Place, Sasko area, a quiet residential pocket of town. As previously stated, the new 830G proposal increases the project from 40 units to 60 units, but makes no adjustments to the lack of parking capacity. If two people share a unit, studio or one bedroom, and each own a vehicle, that's 120 vehicles for residents of the building. Obviously, that increases with added guests. The impact on Lindbergh Street and Fairfield Place will not be only chaotic, but unsafe, as this building cannot house that many vehicles and parking overflow will surely be on our narrow roads. We previously presented expert testimony and submitted video evidence from residents demonstrating the direct safety risks this building poses, especially to families with young children. The revised proposal brings even more traffic and parking strain, yet offers no structural adjustments or accommodations. So where are the overflow vehicles expected to go? As it stands, the application seems to shrug and say, who knows, who cares? This isn't just about numbers. It's about people, about preserving a neighborhood's character, and about ensuring development that doesn't come at the expense of livability. Our narrow roads were never meant to absorb this level of traffic, parking overflow, or residential density. We understand and support the goals of 830G to increase affordable housing in Connecticut. But the law was never meant to bypass sound local planning or dismiss legitimate, community-driven concerns. What's being proposed feels like an overreach. It feels like a numbers-driven exercise that ignores the very real human consequences for those who already live here. Additionally, during a previous commission meeting, either Commissioner Braun or Commissioner Harrison specifically requested visual renderings of the initial proposed building from Fairfield Place toward the Post Road and from Lindbergh Street toward Post Road. To our knowledge, those visuals have still not been provided. These perspectives are critical for the commission and the community to properly evaluate how the building fits into the existing streetscape, whether for the original proposal and especially for this new 830G version. I urge the board to follow through on that request and require those renderings before proceeding. Let me be clear, we are not opposed to development on this site. We're not opposed to Sunshine developing on this site. We're opposed to reckless development, development that disregards scale, compatibility with the neighborhood, realistic parking needs, and the safety of current residents, especially our children. We respectfully urge the commission to reconsider the scale of this proposed 830G project. At a minimum, the plan must be revised to include parking proportional to the unit count. Anything less would represent an irresponsible departure from the board's obligation to Fairfield's current and future citizens. Please listen to your community. Don't check boxes. Help us keep this community a town, and this town, not a city, a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Marie Malo, and I live at 62 Limber Court. I'm going to try to take the temperature down a bit and reiterate what some of my neighbors said. I just want to stress that we all have a lot in common here, everybody. We all believe, we're all here, we all believe in well-planned housing development for the town of Fairfield. That's why we're here. We're all for it, and we all agree that 2179, 2199 Post Road and 29 Fairfield Place could certainly use a facelift and is a great piece of property for something sophisticated and forward-looking. No dispute, we're all on the same page. What doesn't make sense, and again, I think most people would agree, is that a 60-foot, 60-unit housing complex on this tract of land is the proverbial square peg in a round hole. Recently, during some previous meetings, I heard several of the commissioners, as well as Mr. Fallon, I believe, mention that they've driven our neighborhood, especially Lindbergh and Fairfield Place. I appreciate that effort, and I believe my neighbors do too. But what wasn't mentioned was the view that you had as a result of the drive-through. Given the width of the streets, as many have mentioned this evening, given the width of the streets, especially Fairfield Place, I don't think anyone could possibly drive through Fairfield Place and come away with the impression that it could absorb this complex. It's just not possible. But maybe you did. I don't know. Fairfield Place is not a typical street, as I think everybody knows. It has great charm and an historical nuance to it, though it's uncharacteristically narrow, as many have mentioned. And also Fairfield Place, together with Lindbergh Street, they have very limited sidewalks, as we've all discussed. This backdrop will not adapt well to an oversized building, which brings with it a serious lack of adequate parking and increased traffic that these streets, as you witnessed, are not set up to absorb. The result will be overflow parking. We've mentioned it. We've driven these points home, but the result will be the overflow parking, restricted driving visibility, overwhelmingly unsafe conditions for the many who walk their dogs, walk their infants, or the many young children who walk to catch their school bus. Separate from our neighborhood, I don't think this building, given the lack of character via the size, scope, and facade, is what any of us want for visitors or Fairfield residents to experience as they travel through this gateway into our charming downtown Fairfield. Lastly, there will be serious, unfathomable consequences to our neighborhood resulting from the inadequate stormwater infrastructure inherent in the application. In closing, I acknowledge the wide latitude given the developer as a result of the 830G, though given what I believe are quantifiable public health and safety concerns and inadequate stormwater infrastructure, this is not the appropriate development for this tract of land. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
People on the phone? We have people on the phone.
I assume, yeah, I'll go to remote and phone in a second. I just want to see who else was here in person.
Once again, Joel Green, representing a number of residents, many of whom you've already heard from this evening. I just want to, I'll offer a few comments, just because I think we can sort of maybe close off a few issues that were source of a lot of discussion here this evening. First of all, I'm not aware, and based on the present state of the law in 8-30G, I'm not aware of a basis for a combined commercial residential development at this point. I'm not aware of the notion. I'm familiar with the decision on Umpqua Road. I'm familiar with what occurred on Ruane Street, but the present state of the law does not, as I understand it, support that kind of development.
I assume then you would not be, you and your clients would not be supportive of a reasonable accommodation then for the commercial on the first floor?
I think that under certain circumstances, my clients would be supportive of it, but it would have to be part of a development that is respectful of the neighborhood and in a scale that.
So certainly not a reasonable accommodation that leaves the rest of the building the way it is right now, which is fine. I'm just asking. So go ahead.
I haven't had that discussion, but I can't imagine it.
Fair assumption then.
And I also have to say that it was interesting, you know, I listened to the experts, and I can say, you know, experts offer opinions based on their education, training, and experience. As I sat in traffic, and I've done many times, but most recently this past Friday at about 2:30, and the traffic started just west of the mobile station and wound all the way into downtown. And to suggest that any development of any intensity on this site won't be impactful and further exacerbate a really bad situation makes no sense to me. And you all know it. Everyone knows it. The traffic backs up there terribly. And we sit here month after month, or now week after week, listening to experts on traffic for developers saying this will not incrementally affect the level of service. And here we sit, and we have a significant traffic problem in this town, and it's a source of a lot of discussion.
I disagree. If I can, yes. Because the timing of the lights have also been extended. So if someone presses the button to cross the street at the bottom of Mill Plain Road and the Post Road, I forget the amount of time that all 4 or 5 come to a stop. And so, you know, it might be true that the number of trips may not increase, but yet the queue will still extend. So, you know, it may look like the traffic is increased, but the number of cars may not be increased because it may have something to do with the length of time it takes to get through all of the intersections on the Post Road.
We have a significant traffic problem in our downtown.
That makes sense.
We have a significant traffic problem in our downtown. And in fact, when this commission conducted that charrette last year, 18 months ago, we had the event where everyone had an opportunity to discuss sort of the improvements in Route 1 and the development of downtown. That was the number one discussion, was traffic and addressing traffic, but respectfully, we disagree. That's fine. This notion of swapping residential for commercial or this, it's just not within the jurisdiction of this commission, just to sort of swap these uses. So I would urge the commission to stay away from that. I'm not looking to start a lot of back and forth with the applicant. The applicant did not we did have a discussion. We had, I think, 3 meetings. And in the end, the applicant did not, in our view, address the concerns of the neighborhood in a meaningful way. And we can disagree on that, and I'm sure we do, but that's the way it landed. Another point, the engineering department does a great job. I've worked with them on a variety of projects over the years, but they don't have the resources to conduct detailed peer reviews on all these applications. And certainly they're available, and I know staff reaches out to Bill Hurley and others there, and they do provide opinions and they do look at certain aspects of projects, but they don't do comprehensive peer reviews. in a meaningful way on all the applications that are before you. And they're professional engineers. They don't occupy higher ground than any other PE that appears before you. They offer an opinion. And they do not decide, they do not make the decisions that are within the jurisdiction of this commission. This commission, under the regulations, has to make certain findings. And certainly, the law is full of cases that say it is within the purview of this commission to evaluate expert testimony and decide who you find more credible and who you don't. But it's not that the town engineer automatically gets the win, or their opinion is any more significant than any other PE. And I think they would agree with me if they were asked that. Code review, and frequently applicants, and I think I heard it tonight, code review, and I've discussed this with the commission before, is non-binding. It's advisory. It's not exhaustive. Code review is just code review. It's advisory. It's not an opinion. So, and I'm going to keep hammering that point because I'm tired of hearing applicants' counsel get up and speak of code review as being fact. And you know what? I was sitting here thinking, we need affordable housing, and that's a common phrase, and it's easy to say. Everyone says it, but we do need affordable housing. I'm not sure we need another coffee shop across from another coffee shop, 100 yards from another coffee shop in this town. And similarly with retail, and we need affordable housing. So, but we need affordable housing in a way that, once again, is respectful of zoning, of the plan of conservation and development, and of neighborhoods. And this is for the benefit of everyone. And I can tell you from discussions with my clients, they'd be happy with a scaled back development that, once again, creates a reasonable transition into their neighborhood. And the whole development could be affordable, 100%. And they'd be thrilled with it. So I'm offering those comments. We will provide some expert testimony next week with sort of the substantial evidence you're looking for, as is the standard we've talked about. Once again, I always appreciate your time and, you know, having these discussions, and once again, your accommodation, and we'll see you next week.
Could I make
We're not done with public comment yet, so.
I mean,
We're not done with
I
public
will.
comment. You're done.
I'm done.
This is just on the timing of things, but we can wait.
Okay, thank you, because I want to see what we're doing with people on phone and remote, because I don't, is there anybody else in person? Got the sense that Attorney Green was last, which is fine.
We have two people who have signed up remotely. We have Nina Fatahi and Greg. All right. So Amelia,
What was it?
Greg Amelia.
Ms. Patahi, we'll start with you if you can, but anybody else who's joining us remotely, I guess the only person who can type in the chat are those who are joining remotely, not by phone. But if you're joining us by computer, please type in the chat that you wish to be heard. Help us get the queue going. Fatata, was it Fatata? Fatahi, sorry.
Hi there. Good evening, commissioners. As you all know me very well, I've unfortunately had to speak before you and far too many times that I'd like to admit. But it quite frankly feels like our voices, the voices of neighbors and even the experts that we've hired, are not being heard. It's incredibly disappointing to be here again discussing the same development that we know will harm our neighborhood. You didn't ask the developer to scale the project back, not by an inch, not by a foot, to provide any relief to those of us who live next to it. And frankly, we expect more from our elected officials. Your job is not to help developers maximize their profits and give them everything they want. Your job is to protect the public interest and, most importantly, safety, especially that of our precious children. There was no consideration for the children who live and play here, not even the request for a developer to relocate the building's entrance or exit to protect them. That alone could have been a minimum requirement. It's hard not to feel that you actually didn't read or seriously consider the 44-page report submitted by Mr. Santa, a highly respected engineer that this town hires for many projects. When the project changed from restaurant to retail, upon your suggestion, you didn't request a new traffic or parking study. And then without any data on traffic, parking, or stormwater impact, you extended the zoning district across the entire downtown center district. It really does feel like spot zoning. And let's not forget, you approved a zone change despite our formal protest petition. That petition is more than symbolic. State law recognizes that those of us living close to developments are more directly affected. That's why the law requires a supermajority for zone changes when neighbors object. And still, it was approved. And the biggest issue that we have here, and we've talked about it ad nauseum tonight with all the speakers, is the parking situation. It's not about having a car parked in front of your home. It's about the fact that our children are going to be in harm's way with all the cars parked on the street. And even senior citizens walking their dogs, they're going to have to walk in the middle of the street because there are no sidewalks, as you all are very well aware. And now with 830G, we're looking at an even larger proposal. Rather than having come to us with all of our suggestions and try to come to a more reasonable size building for this neighborhood. I know a lot of people on the commission talk about having no cars or, living in a reality that people are walking more or cycling more to places, but that simply isn't a reality. I spent more than 2 years living in a town called Grenoble, France, population of around 400,000. And I rode my bike everywhere. In fact, I never owned a car until I moved to Fairfield, Connecticut 5 years ago. So I lived 20 years without a car. And the reason that places like Grenoble, France can have public transportation, people using their bikes, is because they have parking on the outskirts of town and they have trams that run through the middle of the town that get people places. So people would drive their cars from wherever they lived in the outskirts, park their cars in the plentiful lots and available spots available for the people. And then they would take trams or ride their bikes to restaurants, to stores, to cafes. That simply is not the reality. And it's really, I think, unrealistic to think that's ever going to be the reality of Fairfield, Connecticut as we now know it. Last time you ignored the evidence, this time I'm asking you not to. This project is far too large for this tiny piece of land. It will overwhelm our neighborhood. The traffic and parking burden will be unmanageable. Even under 830G, you still have a responsibility to consider real-world impacts and public safety. Please do better than last time. Please deny this application.
Thank you. Next up, I forgot his name.
Greg O'Melia.
Mr. Amelia.
Yes, thank you, commissioners. I'll be brief because I'm just, my neighbors have been so articulate. I'm relatively new, only been a few years in the neighborhood. My wife and I live on 90 South Pine Creek, so it's on the corner of South Pine and Lindbergh. And I just wanted to make a few points, and I was able to speak to last time as well. But I've lived in communities that had great planning and development. Grew up in Boston and then Chatham on Cape Cod, Lake Forest, Charleston, South Carolina, and most recently on the Upper East Side in Manhattan. And it just seems like I was frankly surprised that the first mixed use was approved, because it seemed like, as Nina just said, but every kind of exception to current zoning regulations was made. There was no negotiation. The second point I just wanted to make is I have a hard time believing the traffic study, because I see it. We love our house. We love being in Fairfield, but we see the traffic on South Pine Creek and on Lindbergh every day. And so I think there's considerable traffic now. Others have mentioned that. And then just my last point would be, as many others have said, not against development. I'm a big proponent of affordable housing. Neighbors, and because we're more relatively new, it's clear that my neighbors feel there has not been good faith discussions with the developer. And I just wish there could be, as there have been in other towns I've lived in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker. Nicholas Evanson.
Robinson.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Nicholas Stevenson from 69 Lindbergh Court. I'll try and be brief as well because it's late, but I just wanted to say a couple important things, I think. During the decision for the previous development, one of the commissioners mentioned that something along the lines that change can be hard sometimes. Frankly, I felt that that statement was a little belittling and insulting. Let's be clear, this is nothing to do with resisting change. This is about public safety, as my neighbors has very clearly put. So there are very, very valid concerns here, and they apply to this 830G application as much as they did for the mixed use application. The streets adjacent to this proposed development are already overwhelmed with traffic and insufficient parking. We have studies showing that go completely against this study that the developer has. And just we have daily witnesses of it. We live there. Who better would know this? Every day, there are cars illegally parked along Post Road. I believe you're not supposed to park along Post Road, and I see it every day. Trying to turn out of Lindbergh onto Post Road is always dangerous. You always, especially if you're trying to turn left towards Westport, it is always extremely dangerous because the sight line is always obstructed. Even more dangerous directly to our street, it's every single day, multiple times a day, people use our street as a cut through. They speed along, they often cut the curb in front of Ben and Marie Molo's across the street from me. And they are driving through our streets speeding, streets that, as we've mentioned, have kids often playing near them and just people walking their dogs, taking a nice walk. That is extremely dangerous and is just an accident waiting to happen. And this development is only going to accentuate that without adequate parking. The conversation isn't about a lack of development or not having a big development or something like that. It's just something that has sufficient structure, sufficient parking to accommodate the number of people that they want staying there. It would be simple for the commission to say, oh, well, this is not our problem. Let's take that up with the police department or whoever's responsible. But it's not that simple. There just isn't space for it. There would have to be a massive overhaul to the area to be able to accommodate parking. You want businesses to thrive along this space? How are they supposed to thrive without adequate parking for their patrons? Instead, patrons have to park along Post Road, as I already mentioned. The commission should not approach these developments with the mindset to build first and fix these issues later. That is irresponsible. Instead, these issues should be addressed upfront, and they should be addressed before developments are approved and break ground, and before they start to worsen and endanger the livelihoods of local residents. For that reason, I really strongly urge you to think about this, be reasonable, and think about the community that you're impacting with these decisions, and reject this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else signed up in chat?
I don't have anyone else signed up if you wanted to give one last call.
Any member of the public joining us remotely or by phone wish to be heard on this application, 2179, 2199 Post Road, 29 Fairfield Place? If you're joining us by phone, please press *6 to unmute yourself. Any member of the public joining remotely or by phone wish to be heard? Any member of the public in person, remotely or by phone wish to be heard? Again, previous hearing has been, the entirety of the previous hearing has been included in this record, so that includes all past public comment. Last call. Hearing none, I'll close the public comment portion, subject to two experts from Attorney Green.
Can I just make one request of Mr. Green and of the commission respectfully? Because I was just thinking this through. Would it be possible, Joel, to get your reports by the close of business on Thursday, like 5 o'clock? And the reason I say that is, Mr. Green makes a good point. We're all under the gun here, but the gun I'd like to avoid is I would get an email of his reports 5 o'clock Friday. I gotta find my experts. Are they around? They have to take time to look at it all to get everything back to you by Monday. So the extra day would help. And if we can.
The answer is, I don't know, but I will try. And if I can't, I'll try to get it. I'll get it to you as quickly as I can, but I will, as soon as I can.
Seriously?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Andre.
That's what you guys did. Last
We
minute.
don't need to go back and forth. We don't need to go back and forth. We don't need to go back and forth.
Did the same exact
We don't
thing.
need to go back and forth.
Your expert live in that neighborhood.
We don't need to go back and forth.
Your so-called expert. He works for the.
Stop.
Gentlemen,
Stop.
He works for the town.
Stop.
Gentlemen,
Stop. Stop.
please, everyone.
That doesn't mean he's not an expert.
Sir, stop.
Thank you.
No more.
Well, you have
No more, please.
We haven't finished the discussion.
Attorney Green.
That doesn't bring
Attorney
goodwill to
Green.
the neighborhood, does it? When
If
you
we can get it by the end of Thursday, please, that's a.
Mr. Green and I will.
Okay. I trust you guys, longstanding attorneys, civil, professional, knowing the time constraints that we have. If you come to me on Tuesday, say we need a meeting on Thursday, that is exceptionally unreasonable. So everybody's gotta be mindful of each other at this point.
Yeah. We'll get it done.
When do, just out of sheer curiosity, morbid curiosity, we had to have a meeting next Thursday. When would that need to be noticed?
24 hours in advance on Wednesday.
Just 24 hours, okay,
Yeah,
That's-
Robert's
no.
rules.
yes. Thought it was more of a statutory thing, well, it was different, but that's fine. Yeah, all right. So closing the public comment, subject to the receipt of the two reports from the experts. Hopefully Wednesday Wednesday by close of business, Thursday, close of business. Council will discuss, get them to us, get them to each other, well, to Attorney Fallon. So we are closing public comments subject to that. I am adjourning the hearing to be the meeting for next week.
Thank you for your patience.
Everybody understanding that we need to finish the hearing and have a decision before the 24th. And again, it would be unreasonable to have two meetings next week.
Did we hear May? Is it May or actually we are in May?
So we might have a meeting on Thursday possibly, or vote on the same night as we finish.
The ideal is to finish this on Tuesday and vote on Tuesday. That's the ideal. But I'm telling everybody now, if we don't vote by the 24th, which is a Saturday, this is automatically statutorily approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Have a good night. Thank you.